Hello, ladies and gentlemen. I do occasionally play this game. So, for those of you who have been wondering what happened to Cultist Simulator, I think it's only been a week that I was off. I might be wrong in that, but we sort of passed it over in favor of the Megacorps expansion for Stellaris. I sort of justified that because we did get the Horizon signal, and obviously it was something that came out a bit ahead of, I had early access to it, so very special thank you to Paradox for that. But I do intend to make Wednesdays Cultist Simulator days, and I know we made more progress last stream, and then I sort of ran away, and there's been some new content to the game, so I'm not sure. I hope the save is compatible, but as always, let's do a quick introduction. We are now on version 2018-12b1. As the title indicates, I fully expect that there will be a new DLC out before I successfully ascend, but let's see if I can avoid that fate. Cultist Simulator. This is a complete game, but also a living game. Follow us at www.weatherfactory.biz and at FactoryWeather on Twitter to learn about the upcoming updates. If you find a bug or if the game is crashing on you, do let us know at support@weatherfactory.biz. Thank you, Lottie and Alexis. In this new version, there's a ton of stuff. I think I'll run through these here because it'll be interesting. Major expeditions reworked to reduce the mid-game grind, including 6 new expeditions. Expeditions now give fixed, more thematically suitable, and usually more impressive rewards. Default expeditions give you a chance to scoop up books from any expeditions consumed by rivals, and also can be repeated to gain ingredients. If you're in mid-game when this patch hits, it might mean that you can get some items twice on your current playthrough. Call it a bonus. I will call it a bonus. Fixed a rare issue where it was still sometimes possible to put a stack of greater than one card in a slot if you swapped out one card of that type for a stack of identical cards. Fixed an even rarer issue where saving the game with only 2 funds in unstarted expedition slots would leave you with only 1 funds on reloading. Hello, Jamie Sam. Great to see you again. 30% of the time, failing to use a favor to save a follower would leave you under suspicion instead. This should no longer happen. Removed bloodshed for now. Reduced fleeting remembrance duration to make it more fleeting. It'll get more fleeting still, but I didn't want to cause too much unexpected pain when this hits the main branch. Rite of the Sea's marriage is now the Rite of the Crow's quenching. You shouldn't see 2 detective legacies. Loads of enhancements to debug console. Extremely alpha implementation of the first major victory. Currently, it's only possible to pursue a Forge Apostle legacy by completing the Forge Power minor victory, and there is only a very limited implementation of just one of the immortal enemies that you'll face, but it should give you an idea of what's coming. Smiley face. This is unavailable in the main branch. Lessons learned now decay to their antecedents. Thanks for the feedback on this. It should always have been thus, really. And finally added a couple of dancer hints. And I am of the opinion that this will likely mean that they are suggestions on how to proceed as opposed to the hinter in the game. I will also mention very briefly, 2 things. I'm probably... Thank you very much to Weather Factory for the reply. It's always very... So, I say this every time, and I mean it every time. One of the things that has kept me returning to Cultist Simulator and has kept me streaming it has not just been the people that it brings out. That has always been a delight. But the developers are very active on social media. If you've not checked out the blog, if you've not checked out their Twitter profiles, do so. They're a ton of fun, and I want to give recognition to that each time. I will briefly mention 2 side comments. One, I smashed my finger in an elevator door today, and it's still very sore. So I'm moving the mouse quite gingerly, but I should still be able to stream. That shouldn't be a problem. And what was the second thing? Oh, a quick little bit of housekeeping for the stream. So I did, for Tuesday, in lieu of a new episode of The Elder Scrolls Arena, which obviously, didn't... there wasn't a new episode because we completed that game. I did sort of a 24-hour... I did kind of a 24-hour recap of the Elder Scrolls Arena streams. Now, the consequence of doing that is I lost 4 followers. So, I've never gained a follower for doing a vodcast. I've only ever lost people for doing this. And I think what I'm probably going to do is this. I am not going to do another 24-hour... I'm not going to do another 24-hour broadcast like that. If you would like to see the continued adventures of Caius, the finest spellsword Dunmer... I guess they're not continued adventures. The previous adventures of Caius, the finest spellsword Dunmer, courier of Tamriel, and now the Eternal Champion. I'm going to encourage you to go to the YouTube channel for that. But that doesn't mean that my Tuesday and eventually Thursday VODs will go away. I do intend to do vodcasts for those. And I think what I'll do is once I start getting a bit of a library of sort of pre-recorded material for people to engage with, I might start going back to those. But the fact of the matter is that I'm willing to accept the losses that will happen on a Tuesday stream of the Elder Scrolls Arena. It's not going to be for everyone. If that's the thing that makes them say, I'm never going to watch this channel again, so be it. But I think, there was some... It's always really fun to see people react to that voice for the first time, and I enjoyed that quite a bit. But I think to lose 4 followers a day is... That's a pretty steep cost for a really small channel like mine. So I'm gonna come up with a better way of figuring out how to do those. Oops. All right, before we jump back into the game, responsibilities: design, writing, and coding by Alexis Kennedy, production, marketing, and biz by Lottie Bevan, UI design and coding by Martin Nerukar, art by Catherine Unger, Clockwork Cuckoo, Lottie Bevan, Sarah Gordon, music: Mary Beth Solomon, Brent Barkman, Mickey Erb. Apologies if I'm pronouncing these names incorrectly. If you happen to know the correct pronunciation, do let me know. For Mickey Moore Productions Limited, audio by Sound Cuts, additional writing by Lottie Bevan, additional coding by Fraser McCormick, Chris Payne, and Mark, I think it's Gagne, Lyros Steyer. I believe this is the person who sort of runs this fan site. I think it's called like the Fansys. Anyways, if you want to sort of see this description of all of the items that are in the JSON files and that, the website has all of that. I might be wrong on that though, so don't quote me. Additional design by Callan Porter, and special thanks to Sonia and PK family, Matt Hosty, Haley Urias of Fail Better fame, and literally everyone who has ever sent feedback or a bug report. Thank you. Obviously, because it's a producer, this is why Lottie Bevan gets 3 credits. This is where the action is if you're looking for a career in games. All right, Jamie Sam, Les Chauffleurs, excellent to see you. Hello to all of you who are lurking or otherwise watching on YouTube. Let's continue the story of Roland. All right, and what's this? Smooth zooming in and out. I am beside myself in excitement. The new mouse finally arrived. It actually fit in my mailbox, so I did not have to do any shenanigans finding the people who are in possession of it. I sort of have my doubts as to whether or not the books that I ordered on Black Friday will suffer a similar fate. But congratulations, Les Chauffleurs. Yes, we're feeling good. I will actually, sorry, the other bits of housekeeping I should have mentioned. So in addition to smashing my finger in the elevator doors. So I am up 1 decrepitude, down 1 health. I had a surprise, well, maybe not entirely surprising, but I had an encounter at work which was reasonably so there's 2 reasonably pleasant things that happened. If we summon 1 Le Chauffleur, that's the condition. So we've got 2 percussagants, but these are already summoned percussagants. So we can't do the noises for these ones because we've not summoned them, but they're wonderful. But yeah, I did want to say a couple of things, just because I know some of you care about what's going on with me. So there are a couple of good things which happened at work, and I know that I have been very miserable about about work, and I would say for good reason. But I also think it's important to recognize when good things happen. You cannot let the dread build up and turn into proper despair. So I do interact with clients as part of my job, and it's actually a reasonably enjoyable one. It's not quite the same as working at a bank or in sort of a sales environment. This is more researchers will come into my workplace, and some of the duties that I have will include things like vetting their output to make sure that they meet sort of our security standards, that we're not disclosing personal information, for instance. And then also doing things like, evaluating the research proposals and such. So one of the researchers stopped by and gave me a Starbucks card. Actually, what was even better was one of the researchers, the manager who has, I've found it very difficult to work under them, was around and asked how the new format, which is one that I've definitely been struggling under, has been working. And the researcher specifically pointed to me and said, "I love him." So I was like, okay, well, this is a nice little feather in my cap. And some other clients have been very kind in their comments along those lines as well. So one really important thing for me is to be appreciated in the work that I do. And a lot of you know that I have been actively looking for work. And when I talked to another division, this is the division that does the price stuff that I was talking about a little bit earlier, basically they let me know about 4 different positions that they would like and let me know that they would be very interested in having me. So I sort of have a bit of a soft landing arranged that way. But the director of my division pulled me into his office yesterday, and basically we had the "what can I do to keep you" chat. And one thing that was really important about that, I don't know if any of you are in sort of management positions yourself, or if you'll find any of these sorts of things or sort of these descriptions helpful, but this was very effective in terms of just sort of managing me, because a lot of my morale was sort of built around the fact that, lots of sort of rumors and people are talking, and there's lots of sort of opinions going on about the current direction of the division. One person had already quit, and there didn't really seem to be a very strong effort to keep them. And so there's a certain point where if you're working at a job, you're working at your Glover and Glover, and you're not feeling appreciated, then you're gonna look for the exits. So in this particular case, they explained, I think you would work very well in the new format, and they sort of let me know what's going on. Obviously, I'm not going to speak too much about the details of my workplace because they're not as relevant. But to sort of recognize the work that I have done and to recognize the difficulty of what's going on, and more importantly, to say that they were open to change, which was not something I had been getting. I'd sort of had communicated by the manager, or my manager, did a lot. So in that sense, 1 dread removed, 1 decrepitude up thanks to the elevator incident. It does create some awkwardness for me because I now have spoken to this division, which is very interested in having me, and I've definitely given some signals that I am interested in pursuing things with them. But I think there will be... I'm keeping my options on the table. I am definitely much more inclined towards staying in my existing position because it is one that I have traditionally enjoyed. And I think the biggest problem that I had was it seemed like I was working these 9-hour days at work with no recognition. In fact, it was almost like things were structured that way, which I didn't think was acceptable at all. And there definitely seems to be a willingness to address them. So why am I mentioning all my work stuff? Well, one, I know some of you care, which is very nice. But also, number two, I've always talked about this game as a mapping from your day-to-day life into the video game, or the video game. Sometimes this is the big thing about stories, and particularly stories like this. This game is very well written, and it's not just well written in the sense that the writing is very engaging and pleasant. So, we take the Percussagant. The Percussagant, it loves the Sistrum's shiver, it loves the thrum of the tympanos, it recalls with fondness the flaying of Marsyas, so it will not stop dancing. Or we can take the heart. There's common sentiments in every thunderclap, let us acknowledge them. The syllables of this formula are compelling. I find myself snapping my fingers to its rhythm. It desires not to cease. Sorry, that was Words That Walk, and before was A Thunderous Secret. A waking chant. Who could hear this and remain unmoved? The sleeping, the dead, the earth and the sky? And I think we've got pulsing airs, a rising power, a reassuring energy. The heart relentless beats to protect the skin of the world we understand. The heart is the principle that continues and preserves. It's just really, I find this really engaging writing. It sounds, it's very beautiful, but it's well written in a deeper sense, in the sense that you relate to this character. That you can assign a name over here, and it's represented in cards. But if you want, the option is always available to you to really dig in deep with this character. And the Dancer legacy is so interesting to me because while I don't think this was ever intended in the game, at least in this very literal sense, I do think there's a very clear mapping that can be made with the sort of priorities and the sort of engagements that a broadcaster will have on Twitch against the story of the Dancer. Some of you will have your own experiences that inform your playthrough, and either you use them to guide it, or they sort of throw things into a new light. The Aspirant legacy, similar story. I really relate to that, not just in terms of grad school and things like that, but a lot of the study that I've done, a lot of sort of my engagement with more academic topics, even more so than the Physician legacy. So. And again, I think, the individual takes that I have on these things are maybe not intended, but I think the fact that this game has all these mappings to your life is intentional. And I think it's one of the things that makes me continue to return to this game. And it is responsible for sort of long pauses like this. But again, if you've not played it, or if you've only given it a casual look in that, I find it very rewarding to look at this game and sort of think about what this means and sort of how it relates to your own life. It's the thing that's kind of kept me coming back over and over again, because there's always sort of a new appearance on it. And like good stories, sometimes you think a little bit about, you just think about things a little bit differently, seeing them this way. I personally don't have any very strong religious beliefs. I don't have any views that are, that are really, I am not particularly spiritual in the sense of, being interested in dark magic or gods or whatever. I am about as boring as sort of my job would imply. But that doesn't mean that I don't have a tremendous appreciation for this, effort. Well, I mean, the subtitle of the game, Apocalypse and Yearning. Everybody knows what it's like to want something, and everybody knows what it's like to feel like there is something that you need to give of yourself, that thing that you were meant to do, or that thing that gets you up in the morning. And everyone can relate to scarcity. I mean, this is the thing that I study in the end, really. That's probably the best way of thinking about economics, is seeing how people act in the face of scarcity. And one of the most scarce things that you have is time. And how do you manage that time well? And when your boss is making you work, I mean, again, I definitely related very well to the Mr. Alden parts. And I would be lying if I didn't say that, yeah, this is a little cultist simulator-ish. I'm working longer and longer for the same amount of pay. This is ridiculous. Now, again, it's not, I'm not going to oversell it. I'm not going to say that, I adjust my life to, it's like, oh, okay, well, clearly what I need to do is I need to wander the streets at night and find a hired thug and get rid of my boss, and that'll be that'll be how I get promoted. Maybe that's not the lesson that gets pulled away, but I don't know. This game definitely engages it. And, sometimes I think one of the nice things about this is that if you're able to reduce something down to a game mechanic sometimes, like that is something that has occasionally gotten me through the moment. It's like, you know what? This is not the end of my life. This is not something where I need to get overly worked up about. This sucks, and I need to think about a way out of it. But, this is just, I rolled the dice and Mr. Alden showed up, and I now need to figure out how to deal with this thing here. I need to find out how to make sure that I don't let this become worse than it is. So, anyways. With that in mind, let's think a bit about what we're going to do here. So we've gotten the next part of our our advancements. So the twins in the Serpent War, and in that I have learnt how pain can be a gate. So unfortunately, my desire is currently consumed with exotic cravings. So what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to sort of juggle this ball. I'm going to put it into the air, and I'm going to use my contract at the Gaiety. What I'm also going to do, too, if I can do something to try and preserve the Pergusagants, I will. It's very unlikely that I'm going to be able to keep this one, unfortunately. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start using these Forgotten Chronicles, and I'm going to... Well, the other thing that I could wind up doing is going through Crocus Hill. Yeah, you know what? I'm going to make the most of my Pergusagants before I go to the next layer of expeditions. I think what I'm going to do instead is I'm going to throw them both into the expedition, and when I lose one of them, that'll probably be the time that I decide to pass things by. So, the ancient tribes reserved this resting place for one who, by the end, in service to a certain merciless hour, was more scar than man. They sealed the entrance with binding songs and mortared blood. Lockwood Fen, the reeking murk of the Fenlands, is ripe with furtive life. Taciturn locals still watch the sacred places of the small and secret gods, the ones that answer prayers. Gladwin Lake, beneath the stark slopes of the fells, the mist-wreathed surface of the lake waits. There was a twin altar here before the Romans came, and legend of a serpent who was sent to defile that altar. Keglin's Reach, here the Romans dug for silver until they reached the unsanctioned space where the names hid things not fit for sunlight. Many others have come since then, and as the tunnels crumble, some have never left. So, I don't really like the idea of using the Pergusagants to just beat down enemies, but it is kind of tempting. You know what? Yeah, we'll go to Gladwin Lake, and we'll come armed with a brace of Pergusagants. Beneath the surface of the lake, or in some cliffside nook, perhaps some relics remain for us yet. So we'll just load this up. We'll see what comes after the draw, but obviously Pergusagants are expendable, so we can work with that. Finally, what do I want to do with my dream? Well, I don't think I have any answers to the Stag Doors riddle. I'm already using my my study. So in this case, let's just go through the white door. I should be able to afford the health. And I believe we are ready to unpause. So essentially what we're going to be doing is we're going to be trying to complete the expeditions. We're going to try and make the most of the resources that we have, but a fairly high priority is going to be to try and advance we're going to try and advance the change if we can. Oh, never mind. Toward the second change, the skin I bear will grow too small, and so I must begin to abandon it. I will need to send a part of myself to learn how. But we already did. So I have a feeling I'm just going to have to deal with the restlessness here. Alright, so we've got Saliba in the group. Ceremony is resident as thunder in a church. I know it well, I wrote it myself. Saliba understands blood, he does not yet understand birth. And the Stag Doors riddle that I have is what must open before the way opens. Answer this riddle to pass the Stag Door and be counted a no. I think we're just gonna go for a straight upgrade to Saliba in this case. So let's grab my Caribbean Idol. I think I can get by with a Thunderous. Nope, I do need the wards that I want. Intellect's light. The task occupies ever more of my attention, but my efforts are paying off. Oh, that's right, I'm upgrading my Grail. I forgot about that. Okay, our expedition plans for the next challenge. It'll consume funds, and I can add funds for now, or I can send another follower. So the younger sister, the mother of ants, was born among serpents. She has so many younger sisters. It can be defeated in battle, or it will respond to the mother's power. Now, this is the important thing. I'm not necessarily going to say who this is. But if you read the lore carefully, and again, this is one of the main reasons why you want to do things like click on the books and actually read the contents. I know I don't always do a good job of this. Usually the way that I structure these streams is to say, I try to say one thing, one stream at a minimum. But if I start repeating things over and over again, I know it makes me a bit slower on the playthrough, and this is already, this is already taking a while. But you get advantages in terms of saying, well, if you know what aspect the Mother of Ants is related to, you're going to be able to have a potentially easier time with the younger sister. I actually believe that there might be some potential benefits if you match this up. I'm not 100% sure on this anymore, but in this case here, clearly we have a lot of edge. So in this particular case here, we'll come loaded for bear. I sense an opportunity. Tonight, I sense that I could attract attention if I cease to hold back and if I commit myself more fully. So unfortunately, we don't have... the restlessness wasn't available for us to work with. But here we go. My outermost skin comes free in shreds and patches, and so do I. Change pearl. My skin is peeling in patches, and beneath it I am darker, but my eyes are brighter. I carry a sea pearl in a secret place. Sometimes at night, I hear the sea. Sometimes in the mornings, my sheets are marked with blood. This card will allow you to win change victory if you upgrade it far enough, devote enough effort to your dances, and you'll find the next step. But yeah, so the plan on this one is just to come with the elephant gun and take out the serpent. So I felt all their eyes upon me. Afterwards, I received a gift from an admirer. A little too personal for me to feel comfortable, but I can sell it on the second-hand market. So we've got our contract back, we've got some money. So, what I'm going to try here now, we'll take the superior contract at the Ecdysis Club. I perform the more exacting moves at the Ecdysis Club. The Ecdysis Club opens, I have learnt, on a rhythm determined by the moon as she alters her shape. It is always, but not only, open on nights of the new moon. So, let's... one of these. Purpose, yes. And then ability or scar. So we don't have any scars yet. So in this case, I think we're going to go... We're going to go with some risk and go full... Oh, forgot the influence. Do I still have that? I still got Trembling Airs. It won't be a ton, but it's... And I don't think we have any other options available right now. I could have used my Restlessness, but again, unfortunately, I didn't manage things well. So we'll see what we can get with... I mean, 7 Heart isn't something I'm gonna write home about, but let's see what happens. Thunder almost. Tonight we are masked and move like celebrants. Mr. Agdistus watches closely. I probably should have paid attention to the almost anyway, but that's fine. We'll get some money for our trouble. That works for me. And then once the dream goes by, ooh, this will be a problem. Johnny Big Time. The time has come. 1 month of forgetting to hit the unsubscribe button. You are one of the few, Johnny. Thank you very much for your continued support. Guys, if you don't know Johnny Big Time, he is one of my favorite casters. He's also one of the people who regularly casts, who actually continued to host the stream during the 24-hour Elder Scrolls Arena business. So please do check him out. He is definitely a very active streamer and somebody who is much better at sort of keeping an audience entertained than I am. He's always got something to say. He's always got something new happening inside of his streams. He keeps the action going. He has got a great sense of humor and a great camera presence. If you've not checked out his broadcasts, he really is somebody who I encourage you to do so. And again, open-minded for games. I did, of course, send him the latest update from Weather Factory on this game. There is now confirmed dogs in Cultist Simulator, which means that he needs to get on this game ASAFP. And if you are wondering what the F stands for, it is feasibly. But yeah, please do check him out. I'd love to do some clips of him and such, but I'm going to keep myself on a fairly tight time schedule. And I do want to make some progress in the game tonight, so please just take my word for it. He is a wonderful man, and he is somebody who has decided to sink $60 into this stream over time, but it's certainly not the money I'm seeing for it. We're both making Twitch rich. Alright, we can go to the Orchard of Lights or the Lodge of the Sage Knight. You know what? I'm feeling a bit pickish, so... More pulsing airs, a rising power or reassuring energy, a 6th order influence, significant resonances or correspondences. This can be used in some rites to summon minions. So this would have been helpful for the dance, obviously. The hours have been called unmerciful, but they permit sleepers sometimes to walk the Orchard of Lights, where each fruit glows like a sunset, where the roots of the trees are shaped for peaceful rest, where the mist soothes the heart. I was there last night, and the taste of the fruit lingers, sharp and sweet as the passage of spring to summer. I can say from experience, unexpected experience, getting a new package fresh from a package from the Church of Merch is a joyous event. I don't know if you know what the packaging looks like, but it is. They've done an exceptional job. By the way, if you've not gone to weatherfactory.biz, I forgot. It's contentment only. If you've not been to weatherfactory.biz and read the article, there's a very good article on the creation of the Church of Merch. And I encourage you to read it just so you can hear a little bit about the packaging. Our strength is matchless, eyes like gas lamp, scales like black jade. The serpent is a powerful foe, but it's nothing before us. What does Eldritch do? Eldritch contributes nothing. I do so hate having them. You know what? We're going to go through the white door again. I'm feeling lucky. Okay, Course of the Heart. Whenever the principle of the heart is implicated, I may gain vitality. So we cede our mouths to the thunder, we cede our feet to the dance, we cede our skins to the night. We do not cease, we do not cease, we do not cease. And Saliba rises as a disciple. I apologize, I should have read the description before, but Saliba's pleasures are taken in a room without windows. His companions return to him again and again, even though each time they are a little less. All right. I need to do something about this notoriety. So, well, that or I just get rid of the evidence. I think it'll probably be better for me to do that because it's possible I'll just drag up one of this Mystique. So let's bring the Hanger-On into the fold. This one is ready. A Hanger-On. Usefully malleable, but they'll probably never amount to much. I did, but like I said, every stream I like to do at least one. I like to read each item at least once. So, the serpent rolls and roars. Its death throes shake the earth, but it's dying, and we will pass. I have a feeling this notoriety won't tick down in enough time to... Well, actually, hang on. So we got 191, so a minute each, so 60, 120, 180. Yeah. Okay, so vitality, need to keep mindful about my contract. There's something tonight that almost happens, a gathering thunder, a moment when the scent of mountain pine freshens the air. We remove everything except the masks, and all that occurs is applause. Add a little more heart to achieve something more. The further advance your desire, the more heart you'll need. So this is fair, because obviously I needed the pulsing airs and I didn't have that available at the time. Ah yes, I keep forgetting this is a good source of Spintrea. So, let's keep the gaiety happy. And the ceremony is resident as thunder in the church. I know it well, I wrote it myself. We've got a pawn. This one is loyal, but lacks initiative. So again, the question is, what do I want to do with my talk? At the moment, I want to bring them up. So, promote a believer by invoking heart. My follower will kneel as a novice and rise as initiate. I will administer the necessary oaths myself. Alright. More descriptions of the serpent rolling and roaring. Now, unfortunately, I let bleak thoughts get the better of me, so I might consider painting as my next job. Obviously, I only have trembling airs right now, so there's less for me to do there. Okay, so I can go for a cheap furtive truth, but that's not really what I need at the moment. So let's go to the Lodge of the Sage Knight. And unfortunately, we miss out on Forgotten Chronicle. We get Glimmering. My emotions run higher than usual. There are things I'll never understand, and those things will always be precious. But just now, I'm closer to them. I recall my dream. This was the Lodge of the Blue Skin. This was the Lodge of Blue Skin, flapping in the winds of the bounds at the Mansus edge, and here was its mistress, who welcomed me as she welcomes all travelers. Company is nice, she confided, but I still miss my Christopher. 10 years! 10 years is not enough, but we could not have been long together, not without touching each other, and you know what occurs when a man long lies with a long woman. Or perhaps you don't. I hope you don't. I won't tell you, just in case. I will give you a tiny gift. So of course I could combine these Glimmering, but I already have Never Know, so I can no longer increase my passion. Sorry guys, just gonna take a quick second here. I want to take a quick second here and give, so I usually do this at the end, but I do want to give some quick thank yous here. So Freighter 5, Mr. Franz, Custom Games, Yorkshire Bastard, oh, we gotta do this again, Unknown Brigade, Inferno Fowler, Nubasaur 42, Mr. Franz, Yorkshire Bastard, Custom Games, Freighter 5, Sir Tristan Live, and I'd like to point out that Sir Tristan Live is actually a Stellaris caster. I know a few of you like that game, and Johnny Big Time are all hosting me right now. I know I do that at the end, but I also know that when I finish, people are kind of dumb, or not dumb. People are kind of done with the stream, and so they don't, they don't hang around for those sort of things. So I'm trying to be a little bit more fair in terms of how I do those shoutouts and such. I'm gonna try typing for a quick second. Oh, sorry. There's actually two things I need to do. I had a Python script running in the background, which was using up a bunch of power. You're kidding me. That's horrible. Okay. What did I break? I didn't break anything, but an elevator door just slammed directly onto my finger. But I have a little Python program in the background, and I made a mistake on one. This other one I should be able to run pretty quickly. What? Oh, I see. I've been trying to do these. I've been trying to do some Python exercises. Nothing to do with some other events. Incorrect. Okay, I'm gonna leave that aside. Yeah, Johnny Big Time. So this was the thing that shocked me. I mean, I know how it... I know, like... Mechanically, I know how, because obviously if you do not actually hit the thing that blocks the door, you... and I apologize for that break there. I just needed to make sure that... I need to make sure that the CPU runtime wasn't being wasted, because that program takes a long time to go. We do have one of the old school freight elevators, but yeah, basically it's not sensitive. Like, it's only sensitive in one part. So if you were to reach out your hand and you were to not actually get the thing that stops the elevator, it will continue to close. And it doesn't seem like those things are moving quickly, but I invite you to put your hand, or just a finger, in the way of one of those things, and you will find out just how quickly they are going. That is no joke. So far as I can tell, nothing is broken, but I am definitely not typing with it. So it's yeah, it's no good. So yeah, anyways, it just means that whenever I want to do something on the computer, typing, it's slower than expected, which translates into some problems with streaming whenever I need to do side things. But the program is taken care of in the background. Shouldn't come up again in the stream, and so we should go with one of these. Okay, so dreaming. I can use my health, but I may need to sort of rest up for my next run at. Now, you know what? That's loser talk. We're going to keep pressing through the white door. I obviously do need to consider how I'm going to... Oop, treasures lie before us. So one thing I didn't consider in my strategy to run out the notoriety was the fact that I would be gaining more from expeditions. But at this point, I just think a moth follower is going to be the right answer on that. There are ruins beneath the water, just beneath at waiting depth. The lake has risen a little in all these years, but not enough to keep us out. Tonight I sense an opportunity. What can I do with this? Well, passion will always be a good answer. Tonight they'll notice that. All right. I felt their eyes upon me. Afterwards, I received a gift from an admirer. A little too personal for me to feel comfortable, but I can sell it on the second-hand market. So, good news there. Some extra money. Obviously, I've been hoarding a bit. This is one of the occasional problems with Cultist Simulator, but more so with the way that I play it. There's obviously no rule saying that I have to do this. What I think I'm going to do here is I'm going to stall out the expedition a little bit, and I'm going to paint with the 2 notoriety. Actually, that'll probably be a dumb idea. Oh, I got sick. Okay, we seat our mouths to the thunder, we seat our feet to the dance, we seat our skins to the night, we do not cease, we do not cease, we do not cease. So we've got a dexterous disciple, loyal and clever with locks. So now what I want to be doing is finding some more people for the cult. This will come at a cost because usually I need to get notoriety or otherwise potentially create some inconveniences for myself. Now, I need to think a little bit about my strategy here with the detective here. So yes, I can paint, but the detective is going to be delayed by the existing mystique. So I'm going to wait it out. I'm going to talk about things that I shouldn't talk about. And yes. Okay. The chapel crypt is flooded, and the water's soupy with old corpse matter. But last night we bring up a wax-sealed coffer. 18th century? No, it's older than that. Let's see what's within. So there's my notoriety. Some money, but that's just the return for the bit I didn't use. We've got a pair of pergussigants, and we've got a few presents. So those indignities perpetrated by the deceitful fraternity of Obliviates. This book is famous for the near incoherent fury of its tone, as for the knowledge it contains. In Latin. We've got the witch-kissed oil. The formula remains unchanged since the days Hecate was worshipped at the crossways. Oh, but this isn't a pigment. And we've got Volume 3 of the Orchid Transfigurations, a 16th century alchemical fever dream, banned for its disturbing allure of its illustrations in the original Latin. So we'll just slightly reorganize things here. And let's just jump into the next one. So let's go to Keeglan's Scratch. I'm trying to go to the ones with descriptions that seem most likely to have people in them. And I know people who are maybe a little more familiar with the game than I am or have better memories will remember exactly the details of what you find in each of these areas, but I am not one of those players. So we prepare for the descent. We bring rope, tools, light. We arm ourselves against everything down there that may yet move. And work. So let's think about my plan. So I've got 34 seconds for this thing to burn out. I'll take my painting skill. If I add a pair of notoriety, I think the one mystique here is going to be enough to burn me. Oh yeah, no, I've got more than one mystique. But that's fine. We'll live with the consequences. So what do I want to use as my inspiration? I should have thought about that before. Let's do a painting about... Well, I could do a painting about glimmering, or I can do a painting about one of my followers. In this particular case, let's do a painting about vitality. This should have an impact. Oh, I should mention too, at work they gave us a copy of, so there's a book. The place that I work celebrated a 100th anniversary. Let's go back to the Lodge of the Sage Knight. And I got fascination for my trouble. Light leaks through the cracks. My mind is brighter than it ever was. The higher I rise, the more I see. Last night in the billowing Blue Lodge of the Sage Knight, I sat on velvet cushions and watched two dead contend with shining swords. They came with the place, says the woman who rules here now, the one who once called herself Gallagher. I was not the Sage Knight, if that's what you're wondering. He went higher in the Mansus long before I came here. My attention has drifted. The swords sparkle like falling water. The dead move like dancers. Did I learn some moves? Okay, so we're back to the white door. I'll deal with this glimmering right away because, of course, I've got the fleeting remembrance. Composure. The doors of vision swing wide. A little darkness will mellow my light. Even dread has its uses. Not that I'm using dread. So yeah, I think I'm just gonna have to live with the consequences of notoriety, to be completely honest. But I'm reasonably comfortable with that. There was a thing. Oh yeah, so work. I could spend money on better paints, or perhaps I could find more exotic pigments. I don't see any value in spending paints on that, so we'll just live with what we've got. Succulent lore. I've increased my mastery of the succulent lore, which we call by its aspect Grail. So we've got some reason which has been sucked up. We're reasonable hedonists. So pleasant upon the ear, one could listen over and over. These are the words that make sacrifice sweet. Delightful sacrament. Use this with a Byzantine tinct or a moth influence or other resources of equal power to summon a raw prophet. All right. I think what I'm going to do is some translation. So, nope, this is already translated. My bad. You know what? Let's just read it then. Oh my God! What am I doing? No, this is destined for Oriflammes. Okay, let's translate the Orchid Transfigurations. Lock the study door. The work begins. Okay, our expedition plans for the next challenge. It'll consume funds. I can add funds now, or I could send another follower. So here we need Forge or Lantern. Here we need Not All Dead Rest Easy. These ones dislike our intrusion. We will prevail against them with Edge, or they may obey one who comes in the name of Winter. So these are two different things. In this case, Edge is obviously going to help us here. So what I need to be doing is either use my Forge or my Lantern. We do have quite a few Lantern followers, but in the end I may only have 2 slots available, so it won't mean that much. But in this case, let's take Pope Clifton and Slee, my usual dynamic duo. Good work. This is work I can be proud enough. With enough publicity, it will sell. Okay, so Contentment's gone to help with the with my Gloom. So we've gained some extra vitality. Obviously, we still have the notoriety to worry about, but I can live with that. And a ton of money. Let's just collect all for that. Okay, so what do I do for work? My contract at the Gaiety has another minute left, so if I want to try and sneak something under the wire, I should do it now. I think probably it's best that I just reset this, even though I'm short on health. But yeah, so at work, there was we had an anniversary, basically 100th anniversary of this particular department, and they commissioned a special book. I don't know if it was for the occasion or if it was just a book that they already had, but it is called On the Shoulders of Giants, and it's a biography of the department itself, which I don't know. I don't think you can like you can't apply a title like that, which was very amusing. But it's actually it is a very well done book. I'm actually going to be happy to have that in my library because I'm a big nerd. But we call upon the Watchman who navigates. The Watchman will clear our sight so that we can almost certainly pass without error. You'll notice, of course, the game always hedges its bets, and this is because there are no longer guaranteed events. The clouds part. Even the wolf despair prowls elsewhere. No dread empowers this despair. It's over for now. Okay. So yet another course of the heart. Not that I really need any of it, but the air is curdled now. I am home again in this lumpen flesh. Better, perhaps. We'll take my affliction, we'll take my earliest expiring vitality. All I need now is time. Incidentally, I always made this... I'm kind of curious. So it looks like you can always throw funds and vitality in. For the longest time, I thought... So my logic was that you need to fill every box in a window. So for the longest time, I was actually spending money and vitality. And I never thought to do it otherwise because it had always succeeded in making me healthy. So I actually made the game harder for myself. But this is the fun of it, right? This is, again, there's different people. I know some people are totally fine with being told what to do, but one of the things I do enjoy about this game is being able to find new things. The game is entirely about those aha moments, and even if it's something self-imposed or a bad assumption that you have, this is one of these things, like if you're ignorant of something and you discover something new, that's an infinitely more exciting than somebody saying, is like, hey jackass, you know you don't need to use 2 items, right? But I know people really like to tell people what to do. That is the one lesson I've gotten from Twitch. But when you guys don't do that, and most, the majority of the time people are very respectful about that, it really does make it fun. And at least the feedback that I get, more so when I play games like XCOM, but I know the feedback for Cultist Simulator has always been very kind as well. I think it translates in the better stream that, in some, I completely appreciate the feeling that people have of getting like very frustrated at seeing somebody do something that they think is wrong. But every time that I'm able to engage the game and discover it again, I just think winds up for more entertaining broadcasts personally. So, all right, let's just read it. A long dialogue between the Mountain Mother and the Vigilant Storm describes the ways in which both mountains and storms end and the protections they use against those ends. Okay, tonight a sense opportunity. We'll just throw passion into it. Sure enough, we had some notoriety that got gobbled up. It's a shame, but not entirely surprising. And I'll just learn to live with it. So I felt their eyes upon me. Afterwards, I received a gift from an admirer. A little too personal for me to feel comfortable, but I can sell it on the second-hand market. Johnny, do you get gifts that are a little too personal as a broadcaster? Because I've actually started donating them to the Salvation Army, and then they tell me that I'm not allowed to donate that sort of stuff. So I'm getting a collection. Okay, what do I want to do for work? If I want, I can paint again. And it will definitely bring in more funding. Is there something better that I can do? In theory, well, so I could work on a commission if I actually had a commission. I could do a ritual, but I mean, in terms of my influences, it's really just a little bit of moth. So I think probably painting really is my best call here, because of course I already know that this is going to translate into something nasty. So in this case, I'll wear down the longer lasting one. And what do I want to do? Let's take Glimmering as inspiration. Trembling in the air, the sun flickers like a shadow, dreams ripple behind the surface of mirrors. I must be careful not to drift from the waking world. So if I get fascination, this will become a problem for me. We've got a new follower, and we've gained some mystique for trouble. Say hello to... I have no idea how to pronounce this. It's either... maybe it's... Valcane or Valicine? Valsine? Anyways, she's operated her establishment for almost 20 years. She has never employed an assistant. Her hands are terribly strong. So let's get her in the club. Expedition continues. Our expedition plans for the next challenge. It'll consume funds. I can add funds now, or I could send another follower. So, Fretful Dead, we've got Edge or Winter. We obviously have 16 Edge already, so Eldridge, get in there. Velcian, thank you very much for that, Raganomicon. This is one thing that I don't like, so I don't consider it backseating. Well, I mean, there's respectful ways of doing it. There's like somebody who came in and was like, it's Spintrea, you idiot. I'm like, it's not the worst thing in the world to learn words by reading them, and but yeah, especially when it comes to names, and especially the names of real people. So like, I hope it's Haley Urias. I'm pretty confident in Alexis Kennedy and Lottie Bevan. But especially for those ones, like those are the kinds of corrections that I like, because it prevents, like, it basically stops me from stumbling over each time I do that. So So thank you very much for that, Reaganomicon, and welcome. Let's just spend the money and be done with it. The sick room grows close and stale. Time to get up. So obviously, once I get my next, Trembling Heirs or equivalent, I can consider another trip to the Ecdysis Club. But I do need to. I kind of need to have my ducks in a row on this one. But there will be opportunities that emerge for sure. So in this case, we'll just continue to go through the white door, and I will use my health. Finished. This is coming out better than usual. This is truly something special, and it may provoke a reaction. Also, our strength is matchless. The dead are as pale as inverse shadows. They move like cobwebs in a breeze. Almost certainly they can't stand before us. We'll send them mumbling back into the shadows of the wood. So, the light in the skull, whenever the principle of lantern sheds its light, I may recall additional scraps of knowledge that will turn into some erudition for us later. We've got notable work. So I think that's my glimmering back. There's some contentment, which I'll probably just burn. Yeah, this was the glimmering that was missing. All that work, no recognition. But we must use the knife, said the lion-throned one, the noose, the flame, the waking world against those who have passed the three-valve door, and so none may pass. That is our law, and the law of the sun. So we gained a thunderous secret. Alright, there are common sentiments in every thunderclap. Let us acknowledge them. Let's go straight back into translation. The ceremony is resonant as thunder in the church. I know it well. I wrote it myself. So, Valcian, I'm going to work with for now. Valcian's ingenuities are endless, and her grip is stronger than a blacksmith's. Give me more. Oh yes, I need to use my work. So with that in mind, we'll go back to the Gaiety, mostly just to make sure that I keep the job and keep myself in money. And then just in time for this to finish, we should have some fresh evidence that I want to send a moth follower off to get rid of. So maybe I'll send Yzabet this time. When the dead return to us, they use what matter they can and their bodies are gone. Oh, sorry. When the dead return to us, they use what matter they can if their bodies are gone. Dust, rust, cobwebs, scraps, and tatters. Now that we have broken them, these tatters are all that remains. Oh, I wanted to read that, but that was my bad. Weary detective doing his job. Fleeting remembrance. Mirrors are calm, the sun is steady, the glory recedes. I am sane, if that means anything. No fascination drives your visions. And there's my precious erudition. Now, once upon a time, I might have tried to use this to upgrade the profound scholarship, but I don't really have the resources available. So I essentially, what I should be using this erudition and glimmering for is to upgrade some of my existing, upgrade some of my existing rights or scraps and whatnot. In reality, probably what I'll do here is I'll upgrade the Furtive Truth, and this is mostly just because I like to have one of everything, and it's essentially that's just for later on in the game so I can read all of the items. Obviously, if I really wanted the items, which is it here, there we go, I can add, you know, all of these. Toggle log. Oh my god! But yeah, I prefer not to use that when I can. So, lore. Thank you, Jamie Sam. Specific, aspect lore, knowledge of the invisible art, so we can use it to attract followers, to perform rites, to open the way to the Mansis, and to seek my ascension. Although it does say lore fragments, so I wasn't totally wrong. to the Mansis. So, Restlessness is a little tempting because it does have the aspects. The problem is it's not high enough. So let's take the risk. Let's go back to the Orchard of Lights. And we gained an Intensity of Radiance. Now, I need to be careful about this because it'll turn into Fascination. Light dews the skin and suffuses the air. But I have an answer for that. The invisible arts, Christopher Lapoli is said to have remarked, is profitable as macrame and as ethical as tobacco smuggling, and in general as beneficial as roulette. Still, there is always the Orchard of Lights, and indeed the orchard with its glowing fruit and its peaceful mists is a place to be yearned for. Last night I walked there in the peaceful hours of the deep night. Even after waking, I can still carry with me a little of the glory of the old sun. So of course, the good news here is that for most of my items, I have some recipes now. So for instance, we've got the Ecdysis Parable. Oh, nope, that isn't there. So we've got Unmerciful Matcha. Merciful, saith the watchman, is found only in shadow. Huh. Normally it will tell you you can use certain items. So the Delightful Sacrament, use this with the Byzantine Tinct and Moth Influence or other resources of equal power to summon a raw prophet. The Waking Chant, use this in a rite with a Byzantine Tinct and Meteoric Bullet, or other resources of equal power to summon a percussagant. Operation of the Declining Sun, to use this in a rite with Heart Influence and Byzantine Tinct to summon the Voices Dead. Huh, okay, so I don't actually have the one that tells me how I should use my lantern. One way or the other, once we're done at the Gaiety, we are going to use this in a rite. So, what else do I want to do? I think I'm going to go through the White Door again, and we'll get what we can. Sorry, my lips are a little bit chapped. Okay, same text. We're just gonna cycle through this as we can. And tonight I sense an opportunity, so we'll put some passion towards it because I have a surplus of that. So of course, one might ask the question, why did I have the Sanskrit reader for so long? It's just simply the fact that Expedition is so much more valuable to me used inside, either exploring Orthos Wood or queuing up these new areas. So this is one of the big ones for Cultist Simulator for me. I am kind of bad at hoarding still, but I do try to use these as efficiently as I can. So for instance, it'd be wonderful if I could talk to Madame Bichet, Dr. Adim, or Count Jannings, but clearly it is more important for me to deal with the tentative evidence than anything. I don't have a favor, and I am going to be generating some notoriety as I continue to go through these expeditions. So we seat our mouths to the sunder, we seat our feet to the dance, we seat our skins to the night, we do not cease, we do not cease, we do not cease. Belciane is not a machine. We are reasonably confident of that because she has been observed now and then to commit quite human errors. So level 5 forge. I now have an equal... So one of the ways to think about this is that I sort of have an equal representation for people who can get over things like rough ground. But obviously the point of the scars and such is to make it a little less costly, or make it seem less costly to use explorers and expeditions. So I felt their eyes upon me, and afterwards I received a gift from an admirer. A little too personal for me to feel comfortable, but I can sell it on the second-hand market afterwards. So, ritual time, right of the map's edge. So we're just going to start by throwing the Intensity of Radiance in here. The lantern is the principle of the sacred place, sometimes called the House of the Sun, and of the light above it. If I add knock, I might be able to attempt a summoning. If I add edge, I can try to conquer my passion with reason. If I add winter, I can attempt foolish, beautiful magic. So, let's say... I mean, I can put the icon of St. Agnes towards it. I'm pretty sure, though, if... Oh yeah, this won't even remotely do this. I don't even think I could manage it the other way around. Well... Oh wait, but I don't have Okay, yeah, so I need to... Wait, no, this is definitely not what I want to do. Wait, why am I... edge and 4. Oh, right. So I want the edge in this. Sorry, I don't know why I'm going mad here. But a hint was once a living mortal, and then a dead one. And now it's something else. The summoning requires lantern for the light which drew them to the Mansus, and edge for the striving they've endured in the mirrors. Sorry, for some reason I thought it was the Maid in the Mirror, but the Maid in the Mirror is edge in winter, so I'm just being dumb. Those indignities perpetrated by the deceitful fraternity of Obliviates. It's not clear whether CROD, who is identified only by his initials, was in fact an initiate of the Obliviate Order of Immortal Adepts. He wrote in the 16th century, after the order, if he is to believe, had passed the height of its power. So we might as well just go straight into this. I'm pretty sure this is winter. So 58 that they did claim inheritance of the traditions of the House of Leth, but they have disregarded both the most sacred and most beautiful ceremonies where they are not found convenient. 59. Oh yes, sorry. I also need to send someone off on culty business. Get rid of that for me, please. Send a devious minion to destroy the evidence. My scheme will most likely succeed. There's always a chance that something will go awry. My own heart pumps more strongly today. I don't have a love interest. I really should show you the love interests in that, but I've been trying to make a little more progress, and I'm content without romance. Some days are better than others. Sometimes the sky is nothing like a filthy sheet. Sometimes the river runs clear. In fact, one of the things I was thinking about this, because there's so much stuff that is added in the Dancer DLC, what I might wind up doing, because I've wanted to do some Cultist Simulator. I wanted to do some Cultist Simulator YouTube stuff because that is a very large driver for people. What I might wind up doing is start to take maybe not quite minor victories, but some of the things that are unexpected, and I can turn those into YouTube videos, and that might free up a Wednesday or something like that. And if you are watching this on YouTube and you happen to want to comment, some feedback as to whether or not you would enjoy it as a full recording like what you see here, but maybe something that's intended for an audience, like knowing that it's for a VOD audience, or whether your expectation would be something like that's edited down, so as I sort of struggle through particular bits or for things that I don't think are having a lot of activity, you'd want to see them as like an hour-long video instead of 4 hours or something like that. The other possibility I'm considering is to do something like Surviving Mars, where I kind of spoke in a... I speak in sort of a more... a lighter, with a lighter touch or something like that. I found an Ether Twitter call-out thread. I think I might have missed the reference here, Reaganomicon. I'm just trying to think what that's in reference to. The sun in splendor, the hour who once ruled the Mansus, was known to walk the orchard before his terrible division. Sometimes his remnants walk here still. Sometimes I see the chilly radiance of the Menascate through the trees, or the chillier radiance of the sun in rags. Were they to come upon me, it might be my end, but to see them in the distance is a gift of insight. Alright, let's go back to... I think we're just going to keep going back through the White Door. I don't have much else to do with my dreams at the moment. Oh, yes. Sorry, I wasn't paying attention, Reaganomicon, but you're absolutely, yes. I totally get it now that you mention it. Once a lady, in a lead-lined sarcophagus lives the skeleton of a woman. Oh, you know what? I always keep forgetting. There is one item before. I always keep reading, once I keep seeing these repeating. Here we go. The air is stale, and the dust sifts worryingly down from the rock above, but the dead lie still. This chamber, with its chalked figures and ancient stains, looks promising. In a lead-lined sarcophagus lies the skeleton of a woman. She wasn't buried here. It looks like she crawled in to die. Something has happened to the shape of her skull, pushing out of the jaw like the muzzle of a beast. Scraps of rotting linen swathe her bones. Treasures lie among the remains of her clutching hands between her ribs. And sorry, if it wasn't clear what I was asking for a little bit earlier, essentially, I'm just kind of looking for some feedback. If you are somebody who primarily watches these streams on YouTube, do just feel free to leave a comment in terms of whether or not you'd like to see shorter streams, streams that are like this. This would be ones that are specifically designed for YouTube, but also whether or not you'd like to see an approach like what I did for Surviving Mars. I know I talked a little bit about that, but I don't know if I actually got the call to action part down. So if that is something that is of interest to you, I would very much like to know. Erratic accounts by one Arun, who is of the hunting and consumption of supposed immortals by shadowy cults of assassins, published in the late 19th century. So I believe we've got this already. We've got the cracked Wildering Mirror. A deep crack runs across the shimmering metal. A forge-aspected follower could repair it with sufficient resources, or I could use up what power remains in it. So I believe this is a particularly rare item, or formerly was anyway. And Betty's Blade. Cut from this blade will not cease bleeding until the wound is healed. One account has it that, Bidey? Yeah, was a knife-collecting surgeon highwayman in the 18th century Toulouse. Another claims that is only a bastardization of the Arabic word for mosquito. Okay, so as before, we'll continue on. This time we'll go to Crocus Hill, and I will take the percussicants will be at the beginning of the conga line, and we'll see what else happens. The one who came here before us had marked the door in the hillside, and yet, and here it may yet be. Hey, GeForce Game Ready driver is available. I definitely need this for the, the next generation of cultist graphics. It will be first person from now on. And here it may be, but it's sealed. It is sealed besides with stones and a binding spell. So I have a feeling that that forge is going to come in handy. And I'll leave it at that. Now I share the right that the Order used to summon a Callagine spirit in clear defiance of the Lethen tradition that, tradition. They did not offer Knocklore with a Winter Initiate, but an Malleus Imperative, but rather Winterlore with a Knock Initiate and a Malleus. It is not to be born. And yet another operation of the declining. Oh wait, actually I've only got two, so. This invokes, acknowledges, and welcomes the passage to silence. Use this in a rite with a heart influence and a Byzantine tinct to summon the voiceless dead. So, summoning is struggling against my control. I could use reason to dismiss it safely, which is always reliable, or I could try to reassert control with passion, which is not reliable, or I could let what will happen, happen. So this time I'm going to try passion. There's always that possibility that it will fail. But my reason for doing so here is I do actually want to use this hint in Expedition. So with any luck, it will work, and without luck, it won't work. This is how these things work. The things from outside the world have many weapons, knives and riddles, fire and despair. I have weapons of my own. This will usually, but not always work. Oh, and we can read the Victory of Crowns again. The assistants are, according to Arun, agents of a power called the Coronel, a soldier of the Secret Masters. The accounts go all the way back to Roman times. The only other thing that I would consider would be upgrading. So obviously I could try upgrading Thunderous Secret, Words That Walk, blah, 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 blah. Or I could... Wait a minute. Sorry, I'm just trying to think through something here for a minute. Not worth it. I think we'll just do the Victory of the Crowns. Chalk, you have a full-time job and stream 3 times a week, and you're willing to make content for YouTube on the side. When do you sleep? I do struggle with that sometimes. One of the things that I've started to do is record YouTube content while I am monitoring. So one of the things I like to do on the Tuesday streams is to be in the chat to just generally let people know. I tend to find that there are more people in those chats if I am engaging with the audience, which of course makes sense, right? Because Twitch is still an interactive platform. But basically, I usually make the videos during something like that. A minion is returned, stumbling, mumbly, clumsily bandaged. They were caught in the coils of their own plan. Heal a fallen follower with talk. He's just here. I was here just a moment ago. Just here, almost certainly. So, bad news, but we will heal things up. Compassion or convenience? So we can only spend money. Ooh, don't do that. And then obviously I need to go to the Gaiety as soon as possible. So I was thinking a little bit about trying to upgrade some lore, but the Glimmering's gonna fall out in a minute, so. Our expedition plans for the next challenge. It'll consume funds. I can add funds for now, or I could send another follower. So in this case, Forge or Knock. I mean, I have my choices, but clearly Forge is the better represented, so. I have a feeling I'm probably going to go through a lot of moth followers at the rate that I'm generating evidence. It's free! My summoning has escaped my control, where it'll wreak havoc, no doubt. So, there goes my passion. I am interested in seeing whether or not I actually suffer for this now. So, we've got Chiliarch's Lesson and the Right of the Map's Edge. At least I don't have Fascination, am I right? So, your escaped summoning will take something from you before it returns to the place beneath the world's skin. Oh, because this worked so well for me last time. Back through the white door until you learn how to do it properly. Okay, so I heard, there we go. Our tools are ready. We should be able to penetrate this warded door. More. We are almost certainly, we will almost certainly shatter this warded door. At least it's not eating a follower. So one of the reasons why I kind of wanted to see how this goes is I know in the past it seemed like these were pretty toothless penalties, so I want to see whether or not there have been some consequences implemented. Our rune scholarship is dubious, but she writes pithily. Incidents of sudden and violent death are interspersed with aphorisms. Ours don't dream, long try not to. Okay, study-wise, let's think a bit. What do I want to do with my study at the moment? I don't think there's a lot that I can... Yeah, I don't want to study Sanskrit with her. I mean, unless I want to start generating certain... unless I really want to start generating certain... you know, like the Glimmering and the erudition and such, but I'm not entirely convinced that's the best use of my time right now. I think I'll just let it sit idle for now. I hate doing that, but okay, so let's see what's happened here. Alright, the thing you conjured has returned to its own place. It will do you no more harm for now. I'm still trying to figure out why. So, like, you'd think that your health goes down in that case, but that doesn't seem to have happened. I mean, I guess I could try like pumping iron and get more vitality, but something tells me that's not really gonna work. Alright, Pain's Gate, the wound is healed as much as it ever will be. A gate of pain and possibility remains. Alright, so... I thought... Oh, right, she became some extra knock, so... Yeah, I mean it's possible. It's possible that I've just gotten really lucky on the rolls. Also, hi, Doc Tabasco. But so far, and there's video records of this, I do not believe I have ever actually had a follower or my health decrease as a result of an escaped summoning. Not that I'm looking to make things more difficult, but just saying. I am so good at Cultist Simulator that it is scared to take things away from me. I can say with certainty that nothing bad will ever happen to me in this game again. Let's either find somebody to bring into the cult. I think I'm going to talk about my... You can shed your skin. Oh no, I don't want to do that. I want to talk about secret places. Don't need that much, just one will do. As to that, more opportunity, so we'll throw passion in. I think we should still be able to get the ritual done. I feel their eyes upon me. Afterwards, I receive a gift from an admirer. A little too personal for me to feel comfortable, but I can sell it in the second-hand market. Okay, so ritual time. Let's try the sunset rite this time. So we'll bring our offering. We will add Enid. And oh no, actually, so I'm almost certain this will not work, but while I'm at it, some lantern. Yeah, that's definitely not gonna work. Alright, so with that in mind, let's just go for the hint again. So okay, we've got a Furtive Truth, and let's go back to the Orchard of Lights. Well, we got a Forgotten Chronicle, that's not too bad. Story of a city without a gate, of a queen who was not born, of a war that was not fought. Exploring with a scrap of knowledge will uncover secret locations on the continent. We definitely have a lot of these, and I can try upgrading them, but I should also start using them up a bit too. Also, I should probably be using my followers to get rid of that evidence like I was originally planning to. Okay. Again, I think I'm just gonna skip the study for now. All doors must open, as all lives must end. This door has found its end here today. So I'm safe to just sort of let this sit. We'll obviously get another notoriety for our trouble. I'm gonna be more worried about despair for the next little while. Okay. Here, this will get you to the last mile, and then you'll have to walk. There's a little auberge I used to stay at when I went, but I burnt it down. She lights a cigarette. The unnumbered stones. Well, that's really interesting. I didn't know that she actually gave you the location, so that's a convenient little way of turning those into locations then. The world as it is. Mirrors are calm, the sun is steady, the glory recedes. If I am sane, if that means anything. No fascination drives your visions, it is over for now. Okay, so, use a bet. Round 2. It's almost possible to stand upright in this place, but the air is foul and our lamps burn low. Here is the warrior king staked out on a funeral stone, his bones smashed to keep him from walking. The orbits of his skull are bound with bronze. Okay. The Hinter do not indulge themselves with showy entrances. A living gaze will shatter them. I know it's here, and that's enough for now. Say hello to the Hint. The Hinter are most comfortable behind the scenes, behind mirrors, behind you. They slide under doors and kill with glass, but they cannot survive the gaze of a living mortal. So obviously we need to go back to the Gaiety to make sure that we keep our job. I'm trying to find out what this... There's a button on my my mouse. It's a SteelSeries Apex. It's a numbered button just below the scroll wheel. I'm trying to find out what it does. Pulsing airs! Great news. A rising power, a reassuring energy. The arrows have been called unmerciful, but they permit sleepers sometimes to walk in the Orchard of Lights, where each fruit glows like a sunset, where the roots of the trees are shaped for peaceful rest, where the mist soothes the heart. I was there last night, and the taste of the fruit lingers, sharp and sweet as the passage from spring to summer. So we've got a fairly decent complement of health. I think in this case I'm actually going to nap to recover from the fatigue as well, and we'll throw everything we can at the next level of our ascension. Melemony. I am mixed. So I had the rather unfortunate incident involving me getting some extra decrepitude by getting an elevator door smashing on my finger very hard. But I have also lost a point of dread because the work situation has improved, and across several dimensions. I either have an alternative for employment. In fact, I believe I have up to 4, but there was a recognition. The director brought me into his office, and basically we had the "what can we do to keep you" chat. And he was good. I think so. There's 2 really key things about it, which is number 1. Again, this is also for the benefit if you are managing people. One of the big things about it was I did not feel that my work was being appreciated, and I felt that a lot was being asked of me, and that there was no opportunity. So, like, in the government, does it affect how the mouse wheel spins? So far as I can tell, no. So like I'm manipulating the button while I do this, and you'll notice that the zooming is basically the same. So but yeah, anyways, the so yeah, like I am not always that, I'm kind of very set in my own very idiosyncratic ways about work things, I think. I know that, and sort of consider it a benefit of mine, that I am willing to do hard work, and that I can be relied on when the going gets tough. And I like that feature about me. Like, I like to be recognized for that. But this does not mean that I want to be open to just, doing everything. I don't want people to, if things are always an emergency and I'm always being asked to do things, that means something is not going right, and that I'm paying for it. And more importantly, like in terms of the government, they have a very systematic way of evaluating performance, and there sort of meets expectations, and you usually need to do something pretty special to get exceptional. And sort of I felt that, if the expectation is that, I need to perform as if I'm constantly in crisis mode, there is no possible way for me to exceed, and there's no guidance in terms of what that even looks like. So my view here is that I want to be exceptional, and I want to work to have that recognition. I don't want it to be given, but when the requirement, or when the circumstances are such that, there's already everything that's being asked, I'm already going beyond my capacity, there's really not an opportunity for me to improve in that particular case. So he was very good. He listened, and more importantly, I sort of felt like my contributions were being recognized in a way that they weren't before. It was also let me know a little bit about what's happening to my department in general, which helped me understand why things were the way that they were. So I'm not crazy about the fact that I've now sort of gone out on a limb and have used some of my contacts to find these other opportunities, and now I may be turning around and telling them, actually, it wasn't as big of a deal as I thought it was. But I am no longer in the, I need to get out of here as soon as I can. And I was not keeping it a secret that I was looking for a new job. And obviously I'm considering my options, but my existing department is definitely back in the running, and I can think of some very good reasons why I would want to stay there. And a large part of that is just due to the fact that he took the time to talk to me and, actually address the concerns, because I was very much under the impression that that was not what was going on in my workplace. So anyways, that is the long answer to the question, Melemony. I think I need to give credit where credit is due, as well as my complaints. So it was very hard on me, and I know everything is not perfect yet, but I now feel that I am able to address issues in a way that I wasn't before. Whether or not that was specifically brought on by the fact that I was on my way out, like I said, I didn't make it. I was not at all secretive about the fact that I was looking for work. And I'll admit, I'm not crazy about the fact that it took me looking for work for the change to happen. But it's, it seems to be on a path. I know that whatever job I wind up picking will be a result of me evaluating my options and not so much feeling forced out of the position anymore. So. Oh, I see. It looks like it's... Oh, maybe it's not. Well, whatever it is, it's not enabled. So, others have been here before us. The power still lingers, and no doubt they used it in their ceremonies. They have taken some of the warrior king's funeral treasures, but have left something of their own. It's got a meteoric bullet. 10A iron bullets are occasionally dug from the skeletons of unusual beasts across Europe, the Middle East, and India. Someone has been hunting monsters. We've got the Book of the Centipede. In the mid-1860s, one Madame Yi presented an entertainment based, she claimed, on the book. This is in Greek. We've got the Piebald Pigment. The crushed wings of the rare Lepidopterans, painting black or painting white. This is the stuff that you'll see right. That'll see you right. And we've got Gradon oil, the precise color of the hours when one cannot sleep. If you have options, definitely explore them. Government will rehire past employees if your next job isn't what you want. Oh yes, and there is always a shortage of economists. So the deal is this. My big concern was that, so I work in a division which has access to a lot of microdata. Every day I will be preparing data sets of millions of observations, and these can be businesses, these can be, well, maybe not millions of businesses, but if you consider that over time, yeah, there'll definitely be millions. Individuals, there's lots of data, and it's something that we, the whole purpose of this department is to facilitate access to this data, and to analyze it. And so, in one sense, I'm taking what would be normally a pay cut. Like if I were to go and work for a consulting firm or do something like, transfer pricing, let's say, which is basically just finding ways to sort of evade tax rules or that, I would be making a lot more than I am right now. Like nobody works in government to get rich. But one of the appeals of this particular department, despite the fact that I know I'm working harder than any of my other options, is the fact that you have the opportunity to do research. And more importantly, I'm doing research with data sets that would require a certain level of permission, the approval of the department, and just generally, expense in order to access it. The drawback is that I definitely had a feeling that the sort of promise of being able to do this kind of research was overstated. And this is just kind of based on a general experience of sort of how things were going, that a lot was being asked of me, but that thing that makes the job interesting to me wasn't necessarily being delivered. So that came up. And more importantly, again, we talked a little bit about sort of future changes and such. And I just generally felt a little bit more comfortable in terms of where everything was going. So, oops. All right, lock the study door. The work begins. And let's go to Lockwood Fen. I could send an expedition here to find books, treasures, tools of power, but I'll need followers to send and funds to supply them. So in this particular case here, I will take my expiring percussagant and the hint. Now this is going to give me 2 expiring percussagants, unfortunately. Well, yeah, no, I'm going to go for this. Because I'm going to wind up using these expeditions anyway. We'll chuck some funds at this. This is mostly just to get some diversity in terms of the aspects that are being represented here. And I'll still be able to add a percussagant if I need it. So, out into the mudlands, somewhere we are certain is a shrine bedecked with precious oddments. If the locals try to kill us, and we are probably heading in the right direction. But yeah, so the nice thing is that the government's always short on economists, so I usually will have options, but I am also very lucky in terms of the situation I find myself in, because I do need to be careful about this icy atmosphere, by the way. It is going to turn into dread. Oh, not anymore, though. Here's my vitality. Okay, so some health. So let's see if we can make this work. Yeah, so I'm very lucky in the case here where I'm not just looking for a job. I'm looking for one that is, basically what I'm trying to optimize on is work that is interesting to me, pays me well, happens at reasonable hours. So like the idea here is that if it's something like a .com company or something like that, you're not going to be working 9 to 5. That's never going to happen. That is going to be, they're going to demand a lot of you in that particular case. But the payment should be there accordingly, and that's up to you to decide whether or not you want to exchange that much of your time and that much of your life for money. That's a big thing about what this game is about. But I mean, and I'll be honest with you, like, I will admit, like, I am trying to find games that are looking for people to analyze some of their data. Because I think it would be very interesting to look at the behavior of players. Like inside this game, this would be spectacular to take a look and see how people are playing it and what certain events they find and things like that. Because one of the things that I think gets missed a lot in data analysis is that you're always looking for averages. And so essentially what you're doing is you're reducing the population or the users or whatever you're looking at into this one thing, like this one representative player And nobody does that. Like, there are lots of different players, and even the, if you think of the development streams for this game, there are there are winter players and there are heart players. And you are able to divide data sets in meaningful ways to gain insights on these different fragments of the base. And very little of this has anything to do with, learning advanced techniques or something like that. The advanced techniques will help you make the most of the interesting questions that you want to ask. But it's really more just about, knowing where to look and having some reasonable ideas to go through. So this is one of the reasons why I go to things like dirty rectangles and that, on the odd chance that there is somebody who might find an analytical view. And in this case, I'm willing to do it for free because those are interesting projects to me, and I think being able to analyze something like that is very interesting. And so that's sufficiently interesting to me, and it doesn't have enough of a demand on my time to really be to a point where I feel like I need to be paid. If, on the other hand, somebody basically just wants me to produce summary statistics once a month, and, write some words to try and justify a conclusion that they already have, this is not particularly rewarding for me to do. But if they were to pay me enough, sure. I mean, it'll be an easy job. And I'll just need to find ways of not getting distracted. So, anyways. Work at the Igdasis Club, the Parting Shadow. I dance with a single partner. I am cat-masked. They are guised as a serpent. Each of my black-gloved hands is tipped with blue steel. If my serpent partner is too slow, I'll mark their skin. And I must be careful of the fangs their mask bears when we join for the kiss. Okay, what do I want to do with dreaming? I think back through the White Door, to be honest. Alright, our expedition plans for the next challenge. It'll consume funds. I can add funds for now, or I could send another follower. So, Forge or Lantern, and then the Watchers. Mortals, perhaps even ordinary mortals, but quite a number of them. They can be fought, seduced, or deceived. So this is a really tricky one here, because we're very likely going to be coming up against the Forge first, which means that I'm probably going to lose this Percussagant. And I would actually like them for the fight, but that's life. So let's throw Valsiana. Yeah, so what'll happen here is I'm going to add the double, well, hang on, let me think about that. I can add 2 Forge, or I can add another Lantern, because I've already got 8 towards that. Yeah, so we'll see. If I get an extra bonus from the Lantern, then I might consider adding that, but this will give me an opportunity to save my Percussagant. I don't want to do that. My minion has returned again, stumbling, mumbly, clumsily bandaged. They were caught on the coils of their own plan. Heal a fallen follower with talk. Alright, this is a particularly stubborn tentative evidence. Zombie Ape! Good to see you. I know there's definitely, I actually wound up losing like 4 followers as a result of, I wound up losing 4 followers as a result of the 24-hour broadcast of the old Elder Scrolls episodes. So I'm glad that you're not one of the ones who was like, I thought this was a Cultist Simulator stream. Awesome to see you as usual. We'll do this each Wednesday until, oh, this is going to become Dread. Such is life. Oh no, it's Chilly Atmosphere. Then it'll become Dread. But yeah, for the foreseeable future, I'm going to do Cultist Simulator on Wednesdays. We did do Stellaris just because I feel the authors of this game would be completely comfortable with a little extra Stellaris. And we did get the Horizon signal, so at least one half of Weather Factory is accounted for. So, Watchmen will clear our site so that we can almost certainly pass without error. I've already got enough Lantern because I brought the Hinton, and we've got the 30 seconds for the Percussagant. That way I don't need to use exploits. So, I am, however, a bit troubled by how poorly my Moth followers are doing this, so half-glimpsed wistfulness has touched me. should be able to manage this, but we might wind up with a problem in the chilly atmosphere. So. Some days are better than others. Some days the sky is nothing like a filthy sheet. Sometimes the river runs clear. Okay, let's go back to the Orchard of Lights, another Forgotten Chronicle. I did read this before, so we're going to try and make some progress, although I will pause just to move this up. And here we go. With arcing grace, I step out of my own shadow, and am a black cat, coiled and contained, and I will move unseen until I am ready to return to myself. So, of course, this is where it would have been nice to have more of my summons, because, of course, I'm ready to go on to my next. Adventure. There's my cat. The cat walks in the night by the river where the black flax grows. Some part of you can roam in cat shape. Send it to accompany your followers to a place where it can perform the dance you must dance. If you have problems finding the place, talk to Sulochana about secret histories. Okay, so we're going to jump straight back to the Gaiety to make sure that we get our money. There's my contentment for what I need. And let's do what I can to... Well, I'm not going to be able to do... Okay, I'm not going to be able to do a summoning to get rid of the chilly atmosphere. I might be able to use the restlessness to upgrade my... Okay, so restlessness might be used with work. Chilly atmosphere in 22 seconds is going to turn into dread, so I can use the contentment to get rid of the dread, and that should nullify everything. The Eyes of Sin. It's great to see you. You like the 24 hours Elder Scrolls stream even if you couldn't watch because of real life and stuff. Yeah, well, I think that's one of the challenges about that sort of a stream too, is that there's clearly an appetite for that sort of stuff. But obviously nobody should be sitting in front of that for 24 hours. So I think what I've decided is I will do another like rerun setup because I like the idea of doing that. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to make sure that I have a better stable of like stuff. And it's not going to be consistent. I think what I'm just going to start doing is directing people to the playlist on YouTube for those experiences, because the big problem is that I know that I lose one or two people every time I do a vodcast, and like that's just life. Like I'm gonna have to deal with that, and I'm okay with that level of attrition. But to have 4 people leave for a stream that for at least a substantial portion there was nobody watching, that seems like a really big cost. And I mean, again, these are probably people who would like unfollow for other reasons. But I'm definitely not looking to give people excuses to unfollow. So, and the Eyes of Sin, you've had company over all day but managed to break away to tune in for a bit. Yes, I was meaning to ask you because I know you put a lot of effort into preparing that. How is that going? Okay, I'm gonna use a follower to clear out the evidence again. What else did I want to do? Right, read the Book of the Centipede. The centipede always found her way into the dark places. When she was punished for it, she reacted badly in the Mansis as in Maya. Okay, and then Dreamwise, right, I was going to wait until I had some dread, so we're all good. The wound is healed as much as it will ever be. A gate of pain and possibility remains. So Elizabeth is now a fairly effective Nock follower. This, by the way, I think is a really smart idea. So you can sort of think... So, you know, this is one of the reasons... So in addition to the fact that the Perpetual Edition is a great deal... not that the DLC is expensive anyway, but one really great thing about this, about being able to play this game from the beginning, is you can sort of see how the game has been developing. So you think a little bit about how things like dread worked, right? You have fascination and you say, okay, well, I'll use some dread to get rid of that. And then you learn, oh, I can use dread to spook one of my adversaries. That's kind of cool. It's like, oh, hang on, I can use dread in this ritual, or I can use dread inside this, inside this ceremony, to bring initiation ceremony, to bring in a new disciple. And so the idea here is that this game always, I guess the best thing that I could sort of take is that it is a matter of perspective and it is a matter of management. You don't always get to choose the hand that you're dealt, but there is a lot to be said about how you react to things. I will admit the second half of this year has been particularly unkind to me, and I have had some, I've had some moments where I think I've handled things quite well, and I have definitely had some moments where I know I could have done better. That's kind of where growth comes from, I suppose. But again, despair has its uses. I mean, you just need to read some Kierkegaard and some of his comments in terms of despair. There's definitely different ways that you can sort of look at things, and if you can find your way through, I'm not even going to suggest that it's easy, but there are ways that you can push these, there's ways that you can have things that happen to you which seem like negatives, and they can be repurposed towards something useful. Doesn't mean you want them to happen to you. It means that you find a way of working through it. And so consider here major complaint, or at least a behavior that players have demonstrated, which is, I don't like losing followers. I don't like losing money. I want to have a big hoard of money, and I want to have a big, congregation. And I do not want to lose a single follower except maybe to Poppy. So in this particular case, look at how Cultist Simulator has handled it. They said, it's like, okay, well, yes, you can send someone on an expedition and they might get damaged. They won't die anymore. There's the possibility of death. But if they get wounded, they get better. So scar, half-healed, fistula. Not all doors are wounds, but all wounds are doors. 3 scars of the same type will kill a mortal. So, basically, instead of just being... So this is, I think, the thing that's kind of neat, is that the changes that happen in Cultist Simulator are not just the very direct things that you would imagine inside of... These are not just the things that would be like what you would expect a player to write in terms of saying is like, this thing happened to me, you should change X. That, if it's not apparent by now, Weather Factory kind of knows what they're doing with this game. Doesn't mean that they won't improve things or that they won't think differently about them in the future, but it is just an opportunity to, chances are somebody sitting down and playing the game for the first time is not going to give some mind-blowing new revelation that's like, oh yeah, this was totally obviously the thing that we needed to do all along. The game is fixed, game of the year, pay this guy $50,000. That's rarely going to happen. But, take something that people have done. You say, it's like, okay, we're scared about losing followers. And they're like, all right, but aren't you a little bit mad that the expeditions take a long time? It's like, yes, we don't like the grind. It's like, well, why don't you use followers? Because we find the loss of a follower is more painful than the grind. This is not true. Okay, if you were to sit me down and interview me and ask me, I would not say that. But you've seen how I play this game, and you know that's true. So here's what they did. They said, okay, negative things that happen to you can also have silver linings. Being wounded will give you new skills. You can think of this can be learning by doing. This can be experience. Like this, oh God, Just think about it. What if more games did this? What if games didn't just give you experience points? You know, what if it was the case that experience also meant you had to give something up? You know, a year of your life. I mean, like, actually, it's a perfect example of this. I had to give up 5 years of my life, the prime years of my life, in order to study all this econ nonsense. Am I better off for it? Sure. I really like the stuff that I study. But, you know, I don't look the same as I did at the start. And, you know, I'm older. Like, that's just a fact of the matter. We do tend to do that thing at a very regular pace. So man, what if more games actually made it so that, you know, the way you gain experience or the way that you improve certain features also involves giving something up? And that's, I think, the thing that I found so interesting about how they solved the follower, like the sense of, you know, the feeling of loss, which is one, they sort of softened it. So you get three strikes with a follower of the same scar type. But they didn't just sit at that. They also said this is the way that people will move up. And so in the end, you get a little bit of an experience system inside the game. And it's just one of these nice sort of well-rounded solutions to a game that is very it's been inside the game ever since you used, you know, things that you thought were negative towards your own purposes as you move on. And this is one of the reasons why I enjoy following this game. It's why, you know, playing the game from the early alpha has been so rewarding, because being able to see sort of how this game thinks about problems and how it's grown over time has been a really rewarding experience. Also, Zombie Ape said something a little bit earlier. It is sad to hear that you're losing a follower. I really like your streams since you found me playing Crusader Kings 2. Hopefully you can watch more often since you live in Germany, and it is not always easy because of the time that you stream. It's actually even gotten worse because, of course, I now live in Eastern Canada, which means that I'm a little bit closer to your time, meaning that I don't have these opportunities to do morning streams for Europe anymore, so I completely appreciate the dilemma. But I also appreciate that you've been hanging around with us for so long, Zombie Ape, so I'm trying to make it... One of the things is that I'm kind of aware of the fact that vodcasts allow people who don't normally watch the stream to have more opportunities to do that. So in the end, I always take the feedback as best as I can. I try to look at what I'm being told by the actions of the people who are watching and the people who are following. And I always definitely feel that I should be focusing on the people who want to watch things and want to enjoy things. But if I can minimize the number of people who walk away because of vodcasts, that would be good too. So clearly 24 hours of Caius has a little bit too much penalty to be worth doing. In this sense here, you know, what happens? Well, there's a small subset of people who really enjoy it, but they have the option of watching it on YouTube. And I encourage you to watch it on YouTube, by the way. For those of you who haven't seen it, I put a lot of time into that. And, you know, if you haven't seen those, you'll know that I do something special for them, which is very physically difficult to do over a long period of time. So I'd love it if you enjoy that. And it seems that some people did. But the question is to find the right balance and say that, okay, there are some people who just clearly don't like this, and they dislike this enough to say that everything else on the stream is not worthwhile for them. And let's face it, these are people who followed a long time ago, and they finally see it, and they're like, I don't know why I'm following this guy. But, you know, it's also possible that the stream that they could have watched me on would be one where, you know, something that is enjoyable, something like Cultist Simulator or that. And so what I need to do is basically, if I'm going to do something like that again, I need to make sure that there's enough variety so that what people see on the screen is representative of the stream. And clearly in this case, the Elder Scrolls Arena is a special event, not a consistent event. So that's the only thing that I'm saying. I don't know how interesting, especially to the YouTube crowd, I don't know how interesting some of the mechanics behind this sort of stuff is, but it's kind of the stuff I've been thinking about right now. And like I said, I mean, I talk about life a lot in this game because in the end, I really think that's what this game is about. And I do find those the most enjoyable conversations because, I mean, I don't know. Here's a question for you. For those of you who do have Cultist Simulator, why do you play it? What makes this the thing that you spend, you know, there's no shortage of games that you can be playing. So what is it about Cultist Simulator that makes it so unique and so special to you that you want to watch, or you either want to play it or you want to watch it? Right, my scheme will most likely succeed. There's always a chance that something will go awry. It usually does at this for this particular one. I was leaving my dream open because I want to convert the chilly atmosphere into something not bad. And I'm going to get sick, so I need to make sure I have a vitality available. I think this will just... I may need to reconsider this. And this restlessness is going to turn into dread, unfortunately, so I am 1 short. So let's just use the contentment as soon as I can. Alright, our expedition plans for the next challenge. It'll consume funds. I can add funds now, or I could send another follower. So we are going to be going up against the Watchers. They can be fought, seduced, or deceived. I mean, we've got 24 edge. I don't think we need to add any more resources towards that. Okay, I've got extra vitality, so that's good news for the impending sickness. And then I need to find a way of getting some contentment. I think the way I'll handle that is by painting. I can also paint away the dread, I suppose. By the way, actually, you know, I'm talking about, you know, gratitude for the people who watch regularly. Another thing that I do need to recognize here, and again, if you're... I am, by the way, actually very interested if, you know, in the people who actually watch these streams for, like, the full duration. So always feel free to let yourself be known in the comments or that. I try to reply. If you don't want to reply, you can also specify that in the comment, because I know some people just want to say something or maybe don't want to talk at all. All of those are fine, but I do like to get to know the people who are watching this stuff, and particularly what works for them. It's not even focus tested like streaming. It's more just kind of like, you know, do I do something that annoys you that I can fix? I know there are things that annoy people that I can't or won't fix. And that's just, you know, that's a difference of opinion, or that's just, you know, I don't find that feasible. But the one thing I will say is that every time I sort of feel like I'm screwing up Cultist Simulator, or I don't have anything interesting to say about it anymore, just generally when I feel like I've kind of hit my peak, I put it up, and the viewership is always just, it always completely dominates every other video that I do. And it is, you know, I will say, like, I noticed that, and I'm very grateful for that, because, you know, I think it is easy for some people to sometimes take these sorts of things for granted. But I really, like, it really does surprise me how loyal, the audience for this is. And I realize it is a function of the game. It's not really, you know, oh, I am, you know, the grand master of Cultist Simulator. Like, clearly there are people who are much more successful in broadcasting this game than I am. But, I mean, again, like, the fact that you guys do keep watching, the fact you guys do keep coming back really is the thing that keeps me going with this. And it's one of the reasons why I enjoy sharing this game, because I still, you know, the bar in Ottawa, I still bring it up. There's still a new person to introduce to this game, and they wind up loving it. So it's a great, you know, it's a wonderful virtuous cycle of just being able to say, you know, hey, come try this out. It looks new. So Jamie Sam says, the thing that draws you to Cultist Simulator is definitely the writing. Yeah, it's a very well written game. I mean, visually too, it's a good looking game. I think we get spoiled a little bit. So I love games like Battlefield 5 just because it's just a feast for the eyes. This is a very handsome game. I mean, it's colorful. It's, you know, it is not easy to come up with representation. Like, think of how many abstract concepts there are in this game, and how this game represents them, and how it just draws your attention to certain things, and how it, you know, like, there's a lot that goes into this. You know, I became really aware of this when the level designer of the introduction to Battlefield 5 pointed out that the resource constraint they were looking on is that you basically needed to be able to play it while you were downloading the rest of the game, which rocked my world. I was like, I didn't even think that would be a priority. And now that entire sequence that basically goes around the world. It doesn't show the Pacific, but other than that, like, I just I sat and I thought about that for such a long time, and I'm like, there are things in games that make them the way that they are that I'm not even, I'm not even, anywhere near the block I need to be able to appreciate something like that. That's almost certainly true about Cultist Simulator. I mean, there's the obvious things in terms of the fact, you can identify all of these as edge because they're green and whatnot. You can usually do that with the books. You can't necessarily do that with the followers. I haven't figured out if there's some revelation in terms of what the colors behind them will mean in terms of the scars that they get. I think those are random. But just the little hints that the game gives you, and I'm not talking about the thing that's currently on my expedition, but like the ways that the game suggests and the way that the game, like the fact that people can sit down and play this game, and that in general the fact that they, for the most part, are able to figure out what to do. I mean, there's the onboarding, obviously, but like once the onboarding is done, the fact that the game is not totally incomprehensible, and that it sort of follows its own weird logic, and that I think the fact that you get hunches in this game, and they usually turn out to be right. I've not quite figured out all of the mechanisms that make your hunches right in this game. And I'd be fascinated to see, if I ever get a chance to do another interview with Weather Factory again, I think I would be, it's a tough one because you don't want to reveal all the secrets too, but I would be fascinated to know like how they are so good at being able to direct your attention to the things that you need. Like, obviously there's a level of frustration in banging your head against things inside the game here, but there's like, I have a tremendous respect for the way that the game has just sort of told me through very subtle means of like, hey, did you think about trying this, without actually going out and saying it. And then like, obviously there's the little things here, like not everybody, it's not perfect. And I generally like that they've added things like this because it does keep you going. But again, there's a lot going on in this game which I haven't even picked up on, and some of that's the writing, some of that's the visuals, and it's a great game. All right, so what's my inspiration gonna be? Yeah, I'll make it my dread. The Watchers will almost certainly regret standing against us. Well, what if I add another edge? Yeah. The river runs through the sands, out of myth and into legend. The painted river runs the other way. One is barred to the centipede now, but she finds ways back in sometimes. Yet another forgotten chronicle. Well, at least I'll know what to upgrade. So, I think I'm gonna do that actually. It wouldn't be my first option, but even just generating the erudition out of something like this. The worst that happens to me is I wind up using up reason. There's not a lot of situations where I need them, so my minion is returned, the evidence has been destroyed, and I am a little safer. Great news that. So I can either try to fill out my ranks even more. Actually, before I do this, I'm finally going to have some chats with my patrons. So if I ever find myself with some spare work, I could spend money on better paints or perhaps find more exotic pigments. Not worth it. Here's what she needs. Commission on Grail. Madame Olympie Bichet is seeking suitable articles for the Karashim Review. She is interested in more substantial response to the Red Grail and its allure. So these will just give me something to do. I probably should have put these in the queue a little bit earlier, but the sun still moves, the wind still walks, and the journals, my journals are the labyrinth clue. Alright, so no Season of Suspicion coming up. Reasonably good news. I should probably go back to the White Door. And he wants secret histories. So Count Jannings, I'm going to say Edge. Their blood pumps bright, then dark. They should not have opposed us. We move on. All right, I've got my affliction. I probably should have thought of that before I went into the dream, but commission on heart. Every time I say edge, it's heart. Jannings likes to be contrarian. I've exhibited the latest paintings publicly. Surely someone will buy something. Now that you think about it, you've never seen Chalk playing a Metroidvania like, Hollow Knight or Ori and the Blind Forest. Do you enjoy that genre? I don't dislike it. It's not my first choice, but that's probably due to unfamiliarity. I do own Ori and the Blind Forest, and I've actually been meaning to stream it, but I definitely have a lot of things that I want to stream but don't always necessarily have the opportunities for. So Ori is one thing that I've considered. I will say one of the Metroidvanias that I have played on stream, although admittedly rather briefly, was Dead Cells, and I quite enjoyed that one. So I will admit, I do sometimes have a little difficulty with Metroidvanias in feeling lost. And it's more of a mood thing for me. So like the one genre that I'm always guaranteed to keep coming back to is strategy. Like I am dying to get back to XCOM 2. We took a small break after killing the first Chosen, and then I had just a dump truck of extra games kind of fall on top of me, which is great because it gives me more content to give you guys, but it does kind of carry with it this penalty of not being able to show you all the cool stuff that I've been meaning to. So I almost broke a secret that I know Ragnastomi will like to hear, so I'm gonna keep that one under my hat. But yeah, so the challenge that I sometimes run into in Metroidvanias is I don't always find the experience of being lost that rewarding. And I know that's part of the genre. And I think probably some of the newer games do a better job of avoiding that than some of the older ones. But that's why I haven't dedicated a ton to that particular genre. But yeah, it's definitely not a result of any dislike. It just happens to be that on the margins, it's hard for me to find a particular game to play, or the time to play a particular game. And so games like Ori sort of get set aside in hopes of doing a special event, but there's so many other special events that I want to do. So if you guys will give me a second here, you've probably be hearing me like smack my lips a lot, and that's just because my lips are chapped, and that's a really terrible way to handle it. So I'm gonna just get up from the screen for a little bit. Consider this your chance to get up and stretch, especially if you've been watching since the very beginning. And I'm just gonna put on some chapstick. So I will be back in 2 minutes tops. See you guys in a little bit. Alright, ladies and gentlemen, I now have eminently kissable lips. Just FYI. Okay. So, I mean, the progress that I've made has just more so been getting through the second layer of expeditions. We're on our last one here, so we'll clear that out. Next step is going to be going through as many Forgotten Chronicles as I can. So I might fast forward through some of this, but I'm not. Oh, Jamie Sam, another thing that I was meaning to ask you, do you have recommendations? here on a flat rock. Oh, you know what? I think I also own Hollow Knight now. Glimmering. We did read this before, so I'm going to leave this aside. But yeah, so you did mention, obviously, Ori and Hollow Knight, but now that I think of it, I think I own both. So I am interested in your recommendations. Ori is surprisingly linear, so you'll probably enjoy it, and I would love to watch it. Yeah, so Ori, I actually specifically got it because I felt that it was one that I would not be as lost in. And again, this is largely unfair to the genre. It's more so a statement of the feeling that so like, I'm gonna give you a deep cut where this applies. So I have a game that I am fascinated by called Command Modern Air Naval Operations. I felt all their eyes upon me. Afterwards, I received a gift from an admirer. A little too personal for me to feel comfortable, but I can sell it on the secondhand market. This is basically a simulation of modern warfare. It is a fascinating game. It is ridiculously complicated. This is also right up my alley. Like, this is the sort of thing that I should be putting a ton of time into. So it raises the question, why don't I? And it's because usually, especially at the end of a day of work, I'm willing to play some complicated games, but that one really is a cut above in terms of the level of complexity and the amount that it sort of demands of you. So it doesn't necessarily mean that I'm opposed to it. It just means that I definitely have to be in the mood, is probably the best way to put it. So, I get home and there's, let's say, Battlefield, which has sort of its time-sensitive events. The first wave of the first event is kind of finishing today. So I'm like, okay, Battlefield is something I understand quite well, so I'll play that and I'll run through it and I'll have a good time. And of course, this means that Command is just a little more costly for me to play, and so my decision is to go into Battlefield instead. And this is the penalty that games like Ori or Dead Cells or any of these ones, they're actually really good games, and they're ones that when I sit down to play them, I enjoy them. But when it comes to, let's say, generic Metroidvania that I've never heard of, I sometimes sit down and I say, it's like, is this going to be a game that involves me like trying to find an item and run through a bunch of rooms, following some bizarre logic that I don't understand, which has been true of a couple of Metroidvanias that I've played in the past. And I appreciate that a lot of those games really are about finding secrets, and that is where it becomes enjoyable. So this isn't like, this is not a knock on any of these things at all. But just in one of these cases, you can sort of see how if I'm in a particular mood, because some games don't require that same investment, they wind up winning in terms of the individual choices that I make. And incidentally, like this has gotten sophisticated enough that the size of a game is... There's an article, I think, on gamesindustry.biz about this. The size of the game actually does... Like, it's kind of a marketing tool. So if you think about it, like, you only have so much hard drive space, and you're much more likely to play a game that is already installed on your computer or your console. And so if you make a game particularly large, what you do is you wind up forcing out the rivals, and so it's much more likely that somebody's going to wind up playing that game. So, but I also think mechanically that sort of thing happens as well. So if I'd put it to you this way, that, it's sometimes hard to think of very mechanically complicated multiplayer games that really thrive. And this is because, of course, you need to have a very active player base. Now, there's two ways you can do this. You can have mass appeal, and you can have something that lots of people will want to play. So, for instance, I know Paradox games are not for everyone, but you're not going to have a hard time finding a multiplayer game in that. But you don't require a lot of cognitive overhead to understand Call of Duty or Battlefield. Grand Theft Auto 5 is pretty straightforward to understand as well. And so, in that sense, there is a certain, the decision that you make to play a given game, like game designers do kind of need to consider, at least for long-term products, how they're going to get somebody to buy the game. That's important. But if it's a game that sort of relies on being sustained through either additional transactions or just, you want to have people playing it, because that is going to be an indication of success of the game, it is actually a consideration you need to make. Like, I don't sit down. So one of the things about Paradox games that's so interesting, and Cultist Simulator falls in this as well, Cultist Simulator is a little bit easier for me to sit down and play, but I'm also sort of aware of the fact that I never just play for an hour. And I also don't want to advance on a game that I'm doing on stream. So that's the main reason I haven't played a lot of this patch, because I only play it once a week for streams. But, Paradox is kind of interesting because they've embraced this fact that they're complicated games, and they're never going to remove that. They are going to present it in better ways, and they're going to sort of simplify the interface without removing the complexity of the game. And the contract with Paradox is basically, it's like, if you're not going to sit down and play this for 45 minutes, you are going to sit down, you're going to have a proper session. And I have a very high playtime in them, because when I am into it, I am really into a Paradox game. Similarly with Cultist Simulator, when I sit down to play Cultist Simulator, it is going to be an event. It is something that I'm going to dedicate quite a bit of time to. But obviously, Cultist Simulator does not rely on having a lot of concurrent players to match up. If this were to be a card game like Hearthstone, you would want to make sure that there's at least enough interest in the player base to have them in the game looking for other people to play with. And so that's largely what I'm describing here, sort of the thing that goes in my head before I sit down to play. Okay, well, no, that's not a problem at all, Jamie Sam, because those are all good games. I've not played Hollow Knight, but Ori is definitely something I'm very interested in. Dead Cells is definitely something I'm interested in. I feel like Eyes of Sin has recommended Hollow Knight to me before. So 2 of the 3 I know for sure I enjoy. And I'm willing to. I mean, I've heard good things about Hollow Knight, so hey, you said it was a gift. No, Hollow Knight is intriguing to me, so I'm definitely willing to look into that, assuming I have it, of course. All right. Apple green paint marks ritual circles on the rock. The remains of the sacrifices past squelch beneath our feet as we search the shrine. And a little hollow in the throne rests an oiled bundle of treasures. So we've got a winged doll, the flayed tantra, and another vital pigment. I probably should use these more often, but the funny thing is, I've never made a special painting. I've tried to. I've never quite been able to get it to work. That's probably just me being a dummy. The flayed tantra. This tantra is recorded as being spoken by an enigmatic individual identified as Peel, and many of the qualities of the qualities of the mythological Naga. The flayed tantra played a notable part in Alexander Sparrow's paranoid pamphleteering. Winged doll. In an attic above a skeleton house, there was a window. Beside the window, there was a box. In the box, there was a bandage. In the bandage, there was a twist of clotted hair. And the hair was wound a doll, because the window had never been opened. And the vital pigment. It is not usual for this red to survive the death of the body. Okay, let's think a little bit about how I'm going to spend my work. So I've got some time from the Gaiety Club. So either I want to work on a commission or I want to work on painting. And in this particular case, I actually do want to preserve one of these creatures. So I can try and preserve a Precussagant, or I can try and preserve the hint while I explore my options. Actually, I'm not going to do that. I am going to go to the unnumbered stones first, and this is because I want to do my dance. And then I will explore the remaining options. So let's load up for the unnumbered stones. I'm going to put in a pair of percussivants because those are my really my only options, if I want to preserve them at least. And sending the cat. And then the expedition might have another purpose. Treasure seekers visiting the stone must penetrate the forest that conceals them, grapple with the locals who revere them, and finally be prepared to do some digging, even if they find a hidden door. Megaliths placed in obsessive inerrant rows by priest castes long dead. Time has long erased the original bloodstains, but on moonless nights, the locals supplement what remains. Hidden chambers might guard hidden treasures. So that tells me that probably Nock and Lantern will be more important here, but gotta keep my percussivants. Oh yes, and then working, let's paint, because that's usually profitable. Although it means that my notoriety isn't going to tick down. And do I want to use Dread as inspiration? I think I do, because I don't have any contentment at the moment, so we might as well just run with that. Season of Ambition, so my pearl change is going to be... Whoa! Whoa, 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 whoa. My bad. Treasure seekers visiting the stones must penetrate the forest that can see it. No, we've still got that. Okay. Pieces of the puzzle, my work needs erudition, so it'll likely fail in this case. Got my vitality through the course of the heart. I could spend money on better paints, which we will do. So obviously my other option would be to spend the money on, or not spend the money, but spend the work on doing these works here. No particular preference, I just happen to want to get some extra money and to use something that might gain. So there's always a chance that I'll gain some contentment as a result of painting. That's not true for the other cases. So our expedition plans for the next challenge. It'll consume funds. I can add funds now, or I can send another follower. So hidden doors can be found with Lantern or Nock. Obviously, this is my strongest Lantern influence right now, and then we'll bring the Pope in to clean up. I think what I'll probably do, I lied a little bit when I said that I would, after this, I would use my Forgotten Chronicle exploration. I think what I'll do is I'll do the Orthos Wood as well, and then we can start doing the explorations, because that'll really max out the resources that I already have available. So, failed the study, kind of expected. So this time my research has failed, but I've learned the lessons of experience. And what I'll do here, I'll just... I'll set up the research again. I don't think there's really anything else I want to do with the study right now, so I might as well make the most of my Forgotten Chronicles. Okay, dreaming. The sick room glows close and stale. Time to get up. So we'll be able to use that at the Gaiety, and let's go back to the White Door, because this is how I like to spend my free time. Oh, I should have studied the Flayed Tantra. What was I thinking? Alright, we invoke Moth at our peril. The forest pulses with beating wings, imagined eyes. We might make it through. Oh! I didn't notice the forest. I've made life difficult for myself. I'm gonna go for... Nope, Forge doesn't make sense. Invoke Moth at our peril. The forest pulses... Okay, so I already have... This is going to be a bit risky. So I'm going to add Sylvia. The reason for that is she's also going to add Edge for the Watchers. So, shadows dapple the path. Perhaps the path is one the Moth has given us. Probably it is. Probably we'll make it through. My latest paintings have reviewed well, so there's that contentment I was looking for. Of course, I've used up the dream slot, but that's the way of the world. And I've gained a patron. We can learn from each other, but probably not. So I've gained a peculiar rumor. That's good news there. That'll give me more notoriety, of course, but we know how to deal with that. So what I will do instead is I will use the peculiar... Oh, I have to explore with the peculiar rumor, so that's just going to vanish on its own. Let's do Thunderous Secret again, then. Quick lore question. The Hours are Eldritch gods, right? Or Eldritch gods. I believe so, Jamie Sam. There might be somebody who's a little bit sharper on the lore than me, but I have always perceived them as godlike. So, the stage awaits hot and clean and bare and bright. If I move the moves and step the steps and do what is required, they'll pay me. Part of the fun of this too, and this is, I think, one of the things... So this is not a side of the game that I personally have jumped very deeply into, and one of the reasons is I actually enjoy... So, one thing I do like about Cultist Simulator, we've lost the path. The forest towers against the dusk sky. The beasts of the forest are silent, but now and then we see their eyes. So, could mean that somebody gets a wound, and that might be sufficient to take out Sylvia. That would be very unfortunate, because that'll knock out some of my moth, which means we're still going to be wandering around. One of the things that's kind of fun for me about these games is to actually not necessarily... So I don't necessarily like going to wikis for things like that. I like learning about the game as I play it, but it's a little bit like when I watch... So... okay. If you guys want to see some interesting Canadian, more experimental film, you can go to the National Film Board, the NFB. I believe all of their shorts are available online. Now there's interesting animations like Ryan, I think is a really interesting one. There's that film on the Mississippi Bubble, which I showed when we did Assassin's Creed Unity. There is one of Buster Keaton's last movies called The Railrodder, which I actually think is a rather charming film. But if you want to know one of George Lucas's biggest influences, you look for a Canadian filmmaker named Arthur Lipsett. And he did two particular films, 2187 and Very Nice, Very Nice. So, 2187, there's no real plot. There's no... It's a very difficult film to describe. But I have a very clear idea about what that film is about. Very Nice, Very Nice, less so. It's sort of similar, but not exactly. But then there's sometimes things like a Tarkovsky film or something like that. And there's plots to them. But, there's things that you sit down and you just appreciate because you don't always necessarily need to express them as a narrative. Or maybe another example would be The Fountain. The Fountain has a story, but clearly some of the things that you're seeing in The Fountain are not really... Like, you're not watching The Fountain so that you can watch, a traditional story like Transformers or Collateral or something like that. And I am built in such a way that I actually kind of enjoy sitting down and just absorbing that sort of stuff. And so I actually wind up playing games like Cultist Simulator a bit like that. Now, clearly I have some pretty clear ideas in terms of what this game is about and what's going on in certain events and that. But I don't usually like going to wikis and reading all the fan theories and things like that. I sometimes like living in strange worlds that have rules that are different. Actually, you know what? David Lynch is the much better example in this. David Lynch has these weird worlds that have their own, logic and their own rules. And it's interesting to be in them. And, you know, a great example would be if you look at a film like Mulholland Drive, there's that great scene with the cowboy. My micro prof actually used it to explain an optimization problem, and it's stuck with me ever since. But, you know, there's that line, you know, if you do good, you'll see me one more time. If you do bad, you'll see me two more times. And if you go and do a search for the cowboy in Mulholland Drive, you will see a lot of fan theories as to whether or not the second appearance of the cowboy counts as a second appearance. Now, it's a film. Obviously, there's nothing in the frame, especially when it's shot on a, you know, on a sound stage. Like, there's nothing that's in that frame that wasn't meant to be there. Hey, no worries, Zombie Ape. I'm probably only going to be up for another 20 minutes anyway, so you won't miss too much, but there's always the VOD. And I'm monologuing at the point now anyway, but thank you very much for hanging out. It's a pleasure to have you around. Hopefully I get a chance to see you again. But I also understand that you're definitely making a special effort out there in Germany, so I hope you have a great evening, and we'll catch you next time. Feel free to say hi on Twitter or anything like that too if you ever want to reach out. But yeah, so there's a bunch of fan theories about the cowboy and like whether or not so if you've seen the film, you know, there's if you think that you've only seen the cowboy once, there's a very clear moment in a scene where the camera just stays a little bit longer than what you would traditionally see in a shot, and a guy in a cowboy hat walks by. It's not at all clear that it's the same cowboy, but you don't put something like that in there without, you know, you don't do that for kicks. So again, a lot of people go into it saying it doesn't count, what does it mean, so on and so forth. Now, I don't begrudge people engaging with films like that, but my enjoyment of Mulholland Drive has very little to do with my ability to sit down and describe everything that's happened inside that film and have a complete comprehension of it. For me, or, you know, a film like Koyaanisqatsi, you know, that one does have a pretty clear, like, message behind it, but you can just sit down and just, you know, wallow in it for a bit. And so I actually, usually for games like Cultist Simulator, there's clearly a lot of lore, and there's a very, like, I have the development, like the USB, like that's something I have, and I've gone through it once I beat the game. It's really interesting stuff, and there's a lot that you can sort of dig out to, you know, there's no shortage of things to think about and figure out inside of this game. But it's one of these ones, I guess the best thing that I can say is that if I see Cultist Simulator as like a nut, I don't want to like get the nutcracker and get to the thing inside. I kind of like this idea of burying it under the snow and then coming back a week later and seeing that the thing split on its own. And there's two, you know, that's just two different perspectives on how to play a game. So I'm not actually that good at answering. That's a really long way of saying that I'm not very good at answering Cultist Simulator lore questions. I am no further along my path of change. In the movements of the secret forms, I must find my lesson. But I'm gonna do it. Okay. Oh, I just got my money. Good news. It's gonna be happening here. Oh, Jesus. The season of... Really? Are you gonna do this to me again? Shame on you. Alright, well, we're gonna paint our way out of this pickle. One of your favorite pieces of literature of love by Clarence Lispector, a Brazilian writer, is very bare bones plot. The focus is on one of the main character's thoughts and how she sees the world. It is one of the classics of Brazilian literature. That's really cool to hear, by the way. Like, I have a friend who did at least a master's in literature. He might have actually gone for the full PhD, God help him. And I am rather fond of the Norton Anthology of English Literature. I sort of talked to him about it because it's, you know, it's a textbook. It's not cheap, although because so many people do take English classes, you can usually find a used copy relatively inexpensively, maybe if it's like a previous edition or something like, or that. So, but he really strongly recommends like get the world literature because you know Shakespeare, you know John Donne, find something that you don't experience. Now I wound up getting the English literature one because it's a me thing. Like this is just it. Like I really do like English literature. Beowulf, Paradise Lost, The Dream of the Rood was a reference that was made inside here. I loved reading that in the Norton anthology. And the fact of the matter is, I'm not going to be able to experience some of those gems. Like I also love Sir Gawain and the Green Knight. I love the hell out of that. These are things that, for me in particular, these are things that I cherish. But I'm also very conscious of the fact that there is world literature that I am just not familiar with at all. So I actually like hearing little recommendations like that. So if you don't mind, Jamie Sam, I'm going to take a second just to write that down. I probably won't get to it anytime soon, but I'm actively looking for good recommendations that are outside of my common experience. And obviously I have a few more worldly resources available to me now, so maybe I'll just pick up the Norton world literature, but I think it's a little bit more important to me to get the recommendations from... Actually, this is another chance for me to bring the YouTube people in. If you have a book you'd like to recommend, put it in the comments, or tweet it, or however you want to communicate to me. But yeah, I am actively looking for recommendations. There's actually The Mask of Apollo was one that I wound up finding because of this game. It was a recommendation on a blog post from Weather Factory, I think. That's by Marie Renaud. The invisible arts, Christopher Alopoli is said to have remarked, are as profitable as macrame, as ethical as tobacco smuggling, and in general as beneficial as roulette. Still, there's always the Orchard of Lights, and indeed the orchard with its glowing fruit and its peaceful mists is a place to be yearned for. Last night I walked there in the peaceful hours of the deep night. Even after walking, I still carry with me a little glory of the old sun. I know I read that before, but I started reading it and it didn't seem worth canceling. So let's take my contentment to get rid of that dread as soon as I can. I'm gonna get another restlessness. Okay, so throw and use a bet. Oop, an expedition member has fallen. Our numbers dwindle. That was the Percussigan we lost. Which is a decent loss because I was not gonna, was gonna lose it in 30 seconds anyway, so. I should be able to get a ritual done to deal with the intensity of radiance. Alright, the wood beneath the mansis is darker even than this place. The moth will guide our footfalls. Success is very likely. So can't add any more assistance along those lines. Lantern or knock. So what's my lantern at now? Definitely need to bolster that. So we'll bring in Pope Clifton. Rote effort. Competent work. There we go. Modest fame. Latest paintings have reviewed well. So there's more contentment, but I don't need to worry so much about that. The contentment really is... that was really to deal with the case where I knew I'd have like a restlessness and a dread coming up. So I can obviously paint away the restlessness that'll be emerging from this as well, but I think the intensity of radiance is my higher priority right now, even if it'll take me a while to do. So let's take the sunset right. We'll throw the lantern in. Oh yes. So Enid. Probably better for me to do the map's edge, to be completely honest, but... Come with me. So, as it turns out, we are making some progress with our... We are making some progress with our study, which surprised me a little bit. So I think what I'm probably going to wind up doing in this case is just taking a... I'm going to wind up taking a follower to get rid of the evidence that emerges out of this. It's possible I'll be able to get rid of the notoriety in time, but I think it's unlikely, especially because I've got another expedition underway. And in the meantime, we might also be able to get a favor. So in this case, we'll just go back to the White Door. We'll grab some health. And... okay, so we've got Violet. Violet has always given unstintingly of her time, easing the pain of the dying. We may be able to recruit this acquaintance as a follower, so more mystique. Oh, he got that notoriety right away with 6 seconds to go. That's just a little FU from Weather Factory straight to me. So in this case, we'll take Violet and we will use the Thunderous Secret to induct her into our ways. There's something up ahead. We've made it through the forest. -1 percussagant, but surely the percussagant is dancing away in pure delight. This project has possibilities. When the research requirements appear, I must fulfill them to gain insight. If I gain 3 insight, I will succeed. Otherwise, I may fail. So we'll see what number 3 is, but I'm feeling pretty confident about it. Okay, supplies are low. Unless I send more funds, we will have to abandon the expedition. Definitely not what I want to do. This is obviously a dirty combo, where if this were to turn into dread, my contentment dies before it. The ceremony is resonant as thunder in a church. I know it well, I wrote it myself. Violet likes to paint. She has a gift, though she's always been very modest about it. She never puts human figures in her paintings. There are enough people in the world. A rebellious spirit. Alright, so this is going to turn into despair, and it also means that the Gaiety is going to be kind of mad at me. So in this case, I don't really see a benefit in trying to gain control of the spirit again. The best that I can hope for is another creature for the Orthos Wood. So what I'm going to do instead is I will use reason to dismiss it safely. Pronounce the words of dismissal, seal the circle tight, erase every trace. Hey, so we're doing all right as far as the study is concerned. So fascination comes up next. So it was the right call to get rid of the lantern. Orchard of Lights. We've got pulsing airs, so if I want another percussagant, I can get one. Rising power, reassuring energy, 6th order influence, significant resonances or correspondences. This can be used in some rites to summon minions. So I probably won't be able to take advantage of that because I have other tasks that I need to perform, but we'll see how it all goes. I'm certain that my adversary has lodged a copy of their notes elsewhere, with their solicitor, with their superior, or even a contact in the press. This is troubling. Alright, it's gone. We're safe. So I've got a shortage of reason now because of my research, but such is the cost of genius. Let's try and get that job back. I'll use my passion. I need the job back. I'll tell them I'll be different this time. Perhaps they'll understand. I was going to be different the last time as well. Oh, and sorry, I didn't notice your comment before, Jamie Sam. So Near to the Wild Heart again by Clarence Lispector is obligatory. And the posthumous Memoirs of Brass Cuba, Epitaph of a Small Winner, by Machado de Assis is a great classic. Apologies, by the way, if I pronounce those incorrectly. I am a moron after all. So contentment, I need to worry about fascination more than dread at the moment, so that's okay. I am taking a risk by going through the white door each time because I can wind up with fascination, but obviously the dread will temper that. Expedition. Look closer, closer still, closer, keep looking, closer. Now close your eyes. Interesting. So the moth dominates the edge. Slightly curious if I add rose, does that still... No? Okay, fair enough. You do your mothy ways, milady. I think I'm going to add some money just to take care of the matter. That way I can react to whatever happens. Their bewilderment is our opportunity. We'll pass in silent secrecy. Incidentally, if it's not clear the way that I'm playing this, so I have deliberately decided that this dancer will be a relatively non-violent playthrough. What this means is that if there is something dangerous, we will defend ourselves. And obviously that's a fairly liberal interpretation of non-violent, because clearly we are breaking into places and killing people who perhaps are less than enthusiastic to see us go into their places. But what I don't want to be is the sort of person who kills the boss at work or kills the weary detective, and that is the reason why I've chosen to do these, these particular decisions of, using moth to get rid of the evidence and such. And it's turned out rather well because we've been able to learn some of these scar mechanics and such. I find that really interesting. So Violet is always very careful. So, in terms of talking, what can I do? Well, I can... really, at this point, I think I'm just gonna keep spilling the beans on the Mantis and see who shows up. If I want to use the pulsing airs, I'm gonna need to do it quickly. I've increased my knowledge of the secret histories behind the one that we know. So we're going to be out of reason for a little bit. But I have a fresh new forbidden epic. The attention of the hours is drawn to the bloodiest wars. Afterwards the histories are braided like hair. So let's take our study and we will use the opportunity to translate the Flayed Tantra. This Tantra is recorded as being spoken by an enigmatic individual identified as Peel, with many of the qualities of the mythological Naga. The Flayed Tantra is played a notable part in Alexander Sparrow's paranoid pamphleteering. I didn't beg. Not quite. Okay, so we've got some time. Let's do something with those pulsing airs. There are possibilities here. If I add edge, I might contact something irrepressible. If I add winter, I might summon up one of the dead. I'm mildly curious here. Just voiceless dead. These are the dead who do not descend or ascend, but who remain in the Mantis and dream of winter. Power of winter, along with a little of heart's warmth, will draw them here. Now, I am actually mildly curious. I think I'm going to try this because one of them has a fairly good moth, and it's also a chance to completely tease you with the percussagant summoning. Our expedition plans for the next challenge. It'll consume funds. I can add funds now, or I can send another follower. So we only have one more obstacle. I don't think I need to add anything. What's coming up next? Still fascination. Oh no, it is. We are currently in fascination. Alright, restlessness, no good. I don't think I get fascination from the Orchard of Lights. Okay, well, it was Glimmering a rare edition, so... we've read that a couple of times now, so... Is there anything I want to do with Dream at the moment is the real question. No. Although what I will want to do with talking is I actually want to use this pawn, and this is just because it'd be cool to get a couple of scars on this guy. Well, no, that'll give me more notoriety, so... we'll almost certainly find this hidden door. I mean, I can try adding Slee, but I think that's as high as I can get it, so we'll move along. Yeah, I really... So the dilemma, of course, is that one of my moth followers may not survive the encounter, but... I say on Blindness by Jose Saramago as your last but not least recommendation. All wonderful recommendations, Jamie Sam. I thank you very much for that. I'm actually gonna... I'm close enough to the end that I know I won't lose them in chat, so I won't bother to wait for the others. Or I won't wait for the others because I know I'm going to be able to write them down. But I really do appreciate the recommendations, especially because I don't think it's the worst trait in the world that I read so much nonfiction. But there's obviously a world of literature that, quite literally, a world of literature that I have been ignoring, and I would like to get better at paying attention to. So, a dark shape limned with winter light. It will not speak, but its eyes are avid, looking, looking. The dead always long for the world eventually. So the voiceless dead, 6 moth, 6 winter. Good. Sometimes the dead enter the mansis by the white door. At its threshold, they lay down their power of speech forever. Call them back to the world, and they still have no voice, but their skins of dust are yours to command. So of course this is what we will use to get rid of the evidence. So I have prepared the text for study. Let us read the Flayed Tantra. Peel was numbered among the great hooded princes, but it breaks with its brethren and followed the Thunderskin in the endless dance. Obviously, I'm also looking for some better knock edge and forge, because obviously that's the thing that's preventing me from advancing through the mansis. But again, you work with what you got. Faint lines in stone, a surface that yields to pressure. We found it. The hidden door moves with a grating shudder and a shower of dust. I have been meaning every time I do a dance, by the way, to put some, very meme-ish, dance song, but I know YouTube is very strict with their copyright claims, so can't do it for risk of muting the whole thing. Oh, what a shame. Glimmering from the Lodge of the Sage Knight. I think, yes, we did do that one because that's the love story. Okay, there was something I wanted to do about Dream. What was it? Whatever it was, I forgot. So let's just jump back into the white door. And away we go. Okay, so we've got another member of the club. This is Clovette. Clovette is happy in a way that brooks no counter-argument to happiness. I love that description. All right, Voiceless Dead, come into my office. We want to chat. And the Voiceless Dead will handle the evidence. My scheme will most likely succeed. There's always a chance that something will go awry. Let's use the opportunity. we go. I felt their eyes upon me. Afterwards, I received a gift from an admirer. A little too personal for me to feel comfortable, but I can sell it on the secondhand market. I noticed, by the way, I don't think I've gotten anything but the personal item. It's a kind of a weird coincidence, but what was I gonna do with study? Don't have any resources to consume. I could try painting, but I don't see any reason to do so because I've already gotten rid of my notoriety. So now would actually not be a bad time to start fulfilling some commissions, I think. I mean, painting's good for money, but it's not like I'm, you know, it's not like I'm begging, so, yeah. Grail it is. This may be useful for a commission. Oh, just in time for my new notoriety. All right, so we read the Flayed Tantra. Once Peel had peeled itself, it had the ink that it needed to write the Tantra. It had to face the wrath of its fellows. Here's the invocation that it used to fend them off. The Geminate invocation. The Sisterin Witch has always been invoked for protection, at crossroads, at the moonrise, where the land shelters the sea. Use this on a right with a Byzantine tict and a meteoric bullet, or resources of equal power to summon a percussicant. Even the game is telling me that I need to summon one of these things now. Okay, so let's do the same... No, okay, this is a tough call because I don't think we're going to be waiting too long to get another book out of the expedition. I'm a little tempted to double up the Forgotten Chronicles just because, again, this will give us more Forbidden Epics, and currently our access to Forbidden Epics is quite limited given our lack of progress through the Mansus. But in this case, I think I'm gonna live with it. What would have been nice would have been to be able to gobble up the remaining Mystique, because that would have just let this pass by and I wouldn't need to worry about any other... Oh, you know what? He's gonna gobble up the... No, he won't, because he doesn't have any evidence against me. But yeah, it would have been nice to do a painting to just gobble up this Mystique, but couldn't have known. Well, I could have known if I bothered taking a look at the time passes, but not every game can be played perfectly, especially when I'm playing. Okay, more Course of the Heart. Helpful if I get sick, but I'm not sick, so I'm not going to worry about it. I'm going to have a bit of the intensity of Radiance. I think we're just going to go straight back to the White Door until we find other options. I want to be a little careful in terms of what I do with the Gaiety Theater next. So he's eaten up all of my Mystique, which is fine. Yeah, I pretty much have to go to the Gaiety at this point, so... What I need to start remembering to do when I do a ritual is to make sure that I also account for any extra time that might happen from a rebellious spirit. So, my minion is returned, the evidence has been destroyed, and I am a little safer. So, what I normally would want to do here is put the Voiceless Dead inside the expedition because it will, excuse me, it will extend its life a little bit longer. So what's going to happen instead, the chamber inside inside the tumulus was half collapsed with the years. Fat white spiders crawl from the touch of our lamplight, insolently slow. The stone reliefs are cracked and dripping, but there is an offering hole still with its treasures. So, oh, this is uncalled for, but if you have any interest in musicals, you should watch Sunday in the Park with George and Stephen Sondheim, one of the few musicals to win a Pulitzer. Interesting, and I've never heard of it, but that doesn't really mean a whole lot because I'm not a particularly sophisticated audience member. So thank you. You've been really great for the recommendations today, Jamie Sam, so I appreciate it. All right, let's bring Clovette into the fold. So what's probably going to wind up happening here, we're going to get the notoriety that triggers, but I'm going to have a Voiceless Dead to deal with the problem, and then we'll be able to add him to the expedition after that. Also, study-wise, now we're going to stick with what we have. I'm also going to try and make sure that I don't get sad. Okay. Blood will bring the creature they call Kittling Ripe out of the roots of the house to dance in the night of the stones. My cat self will join in here until it has taught me the end of all footsteps. And with that, we have completed our next dance. He'll complete his last dance too. So, steps surrendered. The velvet has taught me what is revealed must first be hidden, for its revelation to be of any consequence. I have given up my footsteps. Piebald pigment. The martensite paste. Right, I don't think we're going to get too many goodies out of this, because this is one that you can repeat. And a new Byzantine tinct. So I did say I was going to go straight to the Orthos Woods. I may not complete it this stream, but we might as well get ready for it. So obviously you want to put the Percussicant in here. We'll take the hint because it's my only other option. We'll add funds. Now the reason I'm not adding the Voiceless Dead to this one, even if it's possible that I'll need it, is that I actually need them to deal with what will happen when the notoriety gets gobbled up. So. Orthos Wood, the pines grow thick as hairs on a dog's back. The airs of the inner wood are chokingly thick with resin and dust. The source that brought you here claimed that in the dawn times, the greatest tree at the wood's black heart served as a perch for the great masked crow. In the black heart of Orthos Wood, we might find the tree where the masked crow met its peers, but the forest itself is a peril, and the cannibal clans who live there are another. Oh yes, so in terms of studying, I was not, that was not a good call on my part. So we'll double up our Forgotten Chronicle again. I don't want to get too reckless with these. I mean, we have 4 more, but I may not want to make this into too much of a habit. So our expedition plans for the next challenge. It'll consume funds. I can add funds now, or I could send another follower. So of course it's going to want me to bring... Okay, in this case I'm going to make an exception. I am going to add the Voiceless Dead just because I really do need to make sure that Moth is taken care of here. And I figure adding a Voiceless Dead and Sylvia is the right call. So what's going to happen as a result is I'm going to have notoriety that I need to deal with. Now, I can work with that because in the worst case scenario, I get a second season of suspicion, but it's only it's only when the Voiceless Dead becomes available that I actually need to worry about the second notoriety that I generate, which means that they'll be available to get rid of the evidence, even if it's the really bad evidence. So I'm generally safe in terms of this setup, but it's just one of these things that, you know, it was an unfortunate draw. It was likely that it was going to be one that required Moth, I'm not going to lie, but, you know, you have to make the decision, so. Clavette's Determined Happiness now borders on the Fanatical. So let's upgrade her one last time. And then I might call it here, but we'll see what happens. You know what, I spent too much, but I can live with that. Oh yes, I can also I can upgrade these good people, so more opportunities at the gate. Okay, Pulsing Airs. That's good news. That'll either give me another Voiceless Dead or another Percussicant, which means I'll definitely leave on that cliffhanger. I think we'll do another trip to the White Door just because, again, I don't have a lot to do with dreams at the moment. Shadows dapple the path. Perhaps the path is one that Moth has given us. Probably it is. Probably we'll make it through. Thought, seduced, or deceived. Well, in this case, it's really Moths all the way down. So, Sylvia it is. The wood beneath the mantis is darker even than this place. The Moth will guide our footfalls. Success is very likely. And the Moth finds light in the dark, and so do I. So, I felt all their eyes upon me. Afterwards, I received a gift from an admirer. A little too personal for me to feel comfortable, but I can sell it on the second-hand market. So let's think a little bit about what we want to do with our next step here. Probably use the pulsing airs. Heart 6. Heart 4. I don't really feel like that. It's enough. I have been completely neglecting this. Or I could just say nuts to all of it and... Yeah, you know what? That's it for tonight. Partly this is because I want to leave you in suspense in terms of how I use this pulsing airs, but it would have been cool to see the upgrade. So the one thing I did kind of want to do was upgrade these folks, because I believe this heart gives me enough to be able to turn them into the super. I don't even know the name of the upgrade for the heart followers, but I'm starting to lose a little bit of energy, and we're 15 minutes over, so I think this is not a terrible place to finish. I'm reasonably happy with where we went. I mean, in this case, it was a really slow start, and I mean, if you consider how long it's been since the Dancer DLC was released, I've certainly been taking my time on this playthrough, but in this case, the last 2 times that we played the Dancer, I've got another step in the dance. So, and if I follow the icon here, then essentially we're going to have 3 more ahead of us. So, you know, that gives us plenty of content to work with. And then of course, I mean, there'll be a few blocks, because once I'm finished the Forgotten Chronicles, I've already got the step of the dance that I need. Forbidden Epics are going to be a little bit difficult for me to get. Although, now that I think of it, probably what would be wise is for me to actually go back to the wood to go back and get a few more of these occult scraps in order to get maybe some of the books that will give me these higher level of lore to advance through the Mantis, but I'll figure this out one way or the other. I mean, I'm also kind of stubborn in terms of wanting to keep at least 1 copy of everything, so I tend not to subvert lores into other ones, but it's certainly an option that I have available to myself. But again, it's a fairly relaxing game to play, and it's one that gives me a chance to chat with all of you. So I think this is a fairly decent run of things. I hope you guys enjoyed it, as always, in particular because I know this is more popular on YouTube than any of my other stuff. If you do have any comments or feelings one way or the other, I'd love to hear from you. If you do like this stuff, I will also say too, so I am trying to be a little bit better at managing the YouTube thing, or in fact just generally the attention thing. So if you do want to continue to support this, it's not actually just a call to financial action, especially because it's Christmas, and I suspect a lot of you have got some things that you would like to get loved ones in your own life. But one thing that will do, help me out in terms of the stream is if you let people know about it, either sharing it on social media or to people who you think might enjoy these kinds of games. If you like the videos, if you watch them on YouTube, if you comment on them, if you share the Twitter stuff, basically if you just engage with the content. And then of course, if you're on YouTube and you don't particularly like the videos, you can definitely give the thumbs down. I don't get too beside myself over it. You know, I try and take the advice as it is, but totally fair if you want to say that you don't like that as well. One last thing I can mention too, if you've not read it, there is a blog, systemchalk.ca. I try to do at least one article a month. I'd like to do more, but you know, again, I only have so much time, so I'm trying to commit to at least a monthly article, and I am still due for a December one. So if you happen to like my stuff, I do publish things there once a month, and I am going to try and be a little bit better at doing video recordings of the blogs on YouTube, because I know I only did the EA one, which pissed everyone off, which was more or less the plan. So let's see what we can do here. Oh, thank you, Jamie Sam. It's a pleasure to have you in here as always. Oh, there's a lot of people online. Let's see if I've got something appropriately thematic. I mean, there's really no shortage of people to watch. You know, I know Sin isn't here, but I don't like just hosting people when it's, you know, somebody who they know inside of chat or something like that. So the Eyes of Sin introduced me to a gentleman named Octavian Zero. Now he is basically just a I tried to type with my smushed finger, and that's decrepitude 2 now. I think that is going to be. Sorry, I'm such a baby about this. I don't think anything's broken. You know, I got off light. There was no real damage on that, but it's smarts when you hit it. So, anyways, I'd appreciate if you guys would come along with me on a raid to Octavian Zero. Now, Octavian Zero is a much bigger caster than me. He's currently got 402 people watching. You don't have to use that raid message if you don't want. Obviously, it's sometimes a little uncomfortable to do that inside of a larger chat, but I think he knows me well enough that he won't get mad at you for doing that as well. There's a couple of reasons I'm going to host him. Number one, very friendly streamer. He exclusively does Path of Exile, which is not actually a game that I play, but I think is very telegenic. It's a very showy kind of game, and it's fun to watch games like that, I think. But also, the Eyes of Sin knows him rather well and says that she feels that there is at least some similarity in terms of our vocal qualities. So if you happen to feel that, and I know a lot of you tend to watch me in the evening when you're getting ready to go to bed, hopefully Octavian will be able to give you roughly the kind of experience that you're used to here. So again, just because Sin isn't here doesn't mean that I don't do performative hosts. I try to show you guys a few variations in terms of streams to watch. If Octavian isn't your thing, or if you know you don't like Path of Exile, there's a few streamers that I'll recommend in here. Sheriff Eli, probably one you already know. I actually find him quite enjoyable, and he's doing Star Citizen, so I'm interested in seeing what's going on with that. I've been watching a lot of Rift Tracks lately, so both of those are live. Rift Tracks is pretty much on all the while. Oh, Eyes of Sin. Okay, this is now a performative stream. Outworld, who you may recall from his Mortal Kombat streams, is doing Mortal Kombat. And those are... Lovelust is also streaming, but she's doing Book of Demons, which I've never heard of before. So these are some really nice casters who I'm sure you'll love if you don't find Octavian to your liking. But Sin gives him a very strong recommendation, and I think it's probably better that I shut up and let you see why she recommends him. So, anyways. I will leave you in his capable hands. Have a wonderful evening, guys. Thank you for sharing this with me, and we will be concluding Battlefield 5 on Friday, which means we'll probably be able to go back to Mass Effect shortly after that. Have a good night, and we'll see you next time.